Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. RACE22 Radio!
Drag him up. Fired up. Crank it up. Fired up. Here we time today. Keep your eyes
It's that time again for RACE22 Radio. RACE22 Radio. In-depth coverage of all your favorite short track racing action from all perspectives. With your host, Race22.com founder, Mr. Langley Austin.
I'm not here to make a record, you dumb cracker. They broadcast me out on the radio.
Featuring Performance Center Racing Warehouse President, Mr. Roger Johnson.
Don't you want a little taste of the glory? See what it tastes like.
No!
RACE22 Radio. So sit back, buckle up, and hang on. RACE22 Radio is coming right at you at full throttle. And now your host, Mr. Langley Austin.
All right, guys, we're live here on RACE22 Radio, live from Performance Center Racing Warehouse in the PRW Chassis studio. Make sure everybody can hear me here, dialing up our headsets here, getting a little bit of stuff out of line here. We had to hook up some more microphones because we got more guests this week. But tonight we're going to do a roundtable discussion with some of the smartest guys or dumbest guys, depending on how y'all look at that. You know, I know people ain't too fond of tech men these days, but we're going to talk with these guys here in a few minutes. Got my sidekick here, Roger Johnson. Got him on a new mic, so maybe we'll be able to hear him this week.
I'm not sure how it's going to work out. We'll see.
Well, I can hear you just fine.
That's
so
good.
I guess that's
could be a positive or a negative, depending on who you are.
Well, yeah. It depends on if you talk like you normally do, off the show or on the show.
No, I'm trying to be better.
I mean,
trying to be better every day.
We want as much of the good stuff as we can get.
Yeah, I'll do my best to give you some more of that.
Man, it's getting kind of empty in here in the Performance Center.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
it's super good. I mean, I don't know if anybody was in the Toys R Us clearance when they closed down, but that's what this looks like in here. I mean, we've sold everything that wasn't bolted down, strapped down, whatever. We have hardly any parts right now. It's just we need a little break, try to get things built back up. It's been a good winter. We've been blessed to have everything that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've only got, 3 cars here to work on right now?
Yeah, we got to get Zeke Shell's car out of here to keep them happy over there.
Right.
They just messaged on Facebook. That was great. We're getting a clip on it, and a couple other cars. Still got a couple new ones to build yet that we're working on. But other than that, I mean, ready to get into this. This is a somber group. It's different than our normal group here. Usually everybody's acting foolish and having a good time. And what's been interesting to me is I've kind of stayed in the background. How this is a somber group. These guys are serious. There's not a lot of screwing around going on here.
And I'm not calling them old, but you have age and experience here versus the guys we've had on here previously.
Yeah, good point. I just I can't wait to get into this. I'm real interested in some of the knowledge that people can gain from this. What they've seen happen in the past. I don't think anybody's here to drive a stake in anybody's heart, but I think there's definitely a good platform for each one of these guys to give their experience to it that normally you probably wouldn't get a chance to talk to on a daily basis about what tech things they go through, what their thoughts are on some of the rules. I think sometimes we get confused. Kilby and I have had our go-rounds, and sometimes you get confused over the fact that he's just trying to represent his racetrack or his employer or the sport in the way that he's been given guidelines to represent it.
Right.
I think sometimes we take it personally against them, and it needs not be that way. And when they all show up in this room, it gives you a chance to be able to see that it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to them here in just a moment.
And the news and notes this week, NASCAR clarifies the spindle rule, which I know will be a hot topic at this table. Table for four, please. For the one-piece spindles, they clarified the rule on that. NASCAR also clarified the valve job rule on the Harrington Enforcer engine, so I know that'll be a hot topic as well. Other news, Cars Touring 12. Who wrote
Easy
this?
for you to say.
The Touring 12 lineup has been announced. New entries for this year, Mini Terrell. I'm looking forward to seeing him racing a whole lot this year with the Cars Tour. That's an impressive young man, as all of these guys are. Adam, is it Lemke?
Yeah, Lemke.
Okay.
Lemke, yeah.
Trevor Ward, looking forward to see him. Really expect a lot out of him. Deke McCaskill, Justin Carroll, really excited about him. Returning from last year of that 12, Josh Berry, Brandon Pierce, Bobby McCarty, Craig Moore, Lane Riggs, Ronald Hill. We need to get him on here.
Absolutely.
And Bradley McCaskill. And in other news, to round out the news this afternoon, let's see. How about...
Happy birthday to you. You live in a zoo. You look like a monkey. And you smell like one, too.
And that was happy birthday, Miss Renee Hackett. Happy birthday, Renee. Guys, back to you.
Wow. I really don't know how to follow that one up.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I mean,
wow. Out of all the times we've done this, we've gone off the rails kind of, but I don't know that we've went off the rails. I don't.
Hey, that wasn't as bad as the DUI joke.
Good point.
I mean,
okay.
Nobody got that.
Got to give him credit there.
Do we have to bring that up?
That was terrible.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. Follow that up. I'm sorry that these guys have to follow that up, but we'll get them joined in here in just a second. I want to introduce all of them individually and go through that. But first off, what did you make, Roger, of the spindle clarification?
Yeah, I'm glad. I don't. We talked about this before a little bit. That's why he set me up right here, which is fine. I'm ready for this one. I'm proud of NASCAR in a way. Everybody wants to talk crap and wants to talk whatever, but I'm going to tell you that Langley and I talked about this before the show, and the interesting part is NASCAR did what they've done for years. The difference is that we have a social media platform now that allows everybody to say how they're going to beat this, how they're going to do this, how they're going to do that. And what I find completely intriguing about this is this whole sport was built on people not telling everybody how smart they were and not showing all their cards. And I know it still goes on, but I'm intrigued how people are going to crap on them for at least doing the racer's job. I think everybody's rules have gotten, and rules is a bad word to use, but I think everybody's job has gotten construed. The racers want to run the racetracks. The racetracks want to run the racer. NASCAR wants to be NASCAR, which they should be. And if we maybe go back to the model where it did all work, where NASCAR was them and they made a rule, and then it was our job as racers to try to figure out how to beat that rule and to not tell everybody how stupid it was, because if we were really beating that rule, we wanted them to leave it. We didn't want them to know that there was a weakness in that rule. And now today I can't figure out, it's just a different generation of racer. The racer wants everybody to know, including me, including whoever, everybody wants their respect that they think that they should get or hopefully someday achieve. I just don't understand why. Yes, there's 100 different versions. Yes, it's not going to be clarified exactly correct, but we do know way more than we knew a week ago. So I'm appreciative that they put some kind of effort forth to come out with something. It didn't meet everybody's criteria. Everybody wasn't happy with it. Not everybody was sad with it either. And I think we rely on them to give us rules, so let them give us a rule. And then as racers, go to work. Go to work and figure out the ways that we can beat it. That's how this sport has been working for years and years and years.
Right. Do you think that rule actually clarified anything? Did that tell you anything you didn't already know?
I'm not the normal guy. I get way more information than everybody else does.
Right.
And I don't think it necessarily gave complete clarification to everybody. But I think they're treading lightly to see where they should step. After you've stepped in it, and you know you've stepped in it, which Bushee and I were talking about before this, all Martinsville last year was the fact that they had a test and exam and they did not study. That's it.
Right.
They went into a test I tell my son this every day. If you go into a test without studying, as soon as that test starts, you're beat. You better hope you can save all the face you can save and hope C is the correct answer that day. But if you do the work before you go in there, the test is actually the easiest part. And I think NASCAR got exposed. And they got exposed because they have a lot going on. And like every business, they're trying to operate at the smallest amount of capital they can to keep it be the most profitable. And I think they know that. So I applaud them coming out with something. Even if it's not what meets the masses and everybody wants, something is better than nothing. At least it's a written area that we now as racers can work on operating inside.
Gotcha. All right.
That's the way it's been forever. There's a lot of... Anybody can chime in at any point. I know you want to introduce them, and I want you to introduce them, but is that not how this game has... There's a lot of years of experience at this table. Isn't that how this game has always been played? They come out with a rule, we try to figure out how to beat that rule or play within it to the most amount that we can, because every one of you are racers in some point, right? You're just wearing a different hat today. So I don't understand where it cross-collateralized, because that's the foundation, once again, that the sport was built on. Why we go on social and just completely shit on whatever they did.
Right.
That's not how it's ever worked.
Well, before we go down through there with them, let's introduce them. I'm going to go right to left here. We got Scott Kilby, former Hickory Motor Speedway tech director. I'm not sure exact job title, but go ahead and tell us about yourself and your history in racing and all that.
Well, I grew up. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I can't. It's echoing in my ear, so I didn't know if you could hear me.
RACE22's equipment. Who knows?
That's fine. Just as long as we're good, I'll keep talking. So, grew up on a dirt tracks, Wilkes County, North Carolina, and then finally we made the transition to Hickory, and basically started with nothing and built what we had, and finally got a little bit of sponsorship and was able to run good for several years at Hickory and won several races and a couple of championships. Won the ARA Touring Championship back in 2001 and won a couple the big late model races at Wilkesboro. That's probably the big hey for us, back in 94 and 96, won both those big races against all the guys that came down from Virginia, like we used to say. And then went on to run a couple Bush races and the All Pro Series and a few odds and ends before I come back to run the ARA deal. But then kind of got out of it, drove other people's stuff for a little while, and then it's in your blood. So over at Hickory one night, and Kevin Piercy walked up to me and asked me if I'd be interested in working for the racetrack and helping, and I actually started as race director at Hickory, and race directed 1 year, then moved down to the tech shed, and had the opportunity to, that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be around the racers, and so I was headed up the tech. I believe it was for about 4 years. Worked the big Martinsville races and Southern National and stuff. So seen a lot, been on both sides of the fence per se. So it's been a good experience. I've been real fortunate to have the opportunities I've had and be able to race and race competitive there for several years. So.
Gotcha. All right, next up we got David Lightning. That's what most of you would know him by, Saunders, who is the Cars Tour Techman currently, and I believe he's also the Techman at Southern National, I believe.
Yes, and I still help Dominion in South Boston. I've been in racing for 30-some years with Carl Long, Scott Riggs, Danny Willis, all the way up to... I don't know, 10 years ago, I got offered the job at South Boston, and I was head tech there. Then I went to Caraway and was there for 3 or 4 years, and this is my second year with the Cars Tour.
Gotcha. Then we've got Kenny Hunley, former NASCAR Whelen All-American Series competition director, I believe, director of competition, however they put that. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm 56 years old, and I've been racing for 56 years.
That's it. There it is right there.
My first memories as a child was sitting in my mama's lap at the Kingsport Speedway in the grandstands watching my dad run a modified on dirt. So after he quit that, Kingsport Speedway went to pavement. They asked my dad to run the racetrack, and You know, I'd done everything. I picked the trash up, sold the tickets, took the tickets up, worked the concession stands. The joke was that I've done everything at the racetrack except be a flagman. I've never done that, so
we'll have to make that happen.
Maybe we'll make it happen sometime.
Sure.
So after that, he went to work for Kenny Childers, a coal miner, and we run for the Late Model Sportsman National Championships 4 years. It was 2 with LD and 2 with Bushee Langley. We won them. The coal miner decided he wanted to go cup racing, so at that point in time, I was just graduating out of high school, and I went to work for him. Donnie Allison was driving the car. Went to work for him. I graduated high school on Friday one night, whatever it was. Next morning I got up and went to Bluefield, West Virginia, climbed in a van, and we went to Riverside, California. It was my first show. So,
awesome.
So I worked there several years. Another little tidbit there. He hired me at $150 a week.
I think that's important for people to know. That's awesome. Yes,
well,
I mean...
Yeah, but when we got back we went to Riverside, we changed the car over, we went to Michigan, then we come home, so we was gone for about a month. When I got my first paycheck, it was $350 a week. And I said, what's this? And he said, well, I hired a sweeper and I've got a fabricator. And I said, well, okay, that's great, here we go. So after that, we went to worked for the coal miner for them several years, ever up to 81, I guess. Had a little time off, went to Morgan McClure in 84, I guess it was. Tony Glover called me and said, I need some help up here, come help me. So I went to work for Morgan McClure for several years. During all this time, when I was 16 years old, I was a volunteer fireman. So I got married while I worked at Morgan McClure, and I got had a kid on the way, and I decided, well, I'm going to change up here a little bit. My racing was my profession, and firefighting was my hobby. So then I turned around and I became a fireman. Went to work for the city of Kingsport, and I started racing as a hobby. It was a good deal. I worked 3 days a week.
That's great.
I worked 3 days a week, so I got plenty of time to race. I think we built a first late model stock car for the Ford place up home. Got Scott Blomquist to drive it. It was so that was the first thing I'd ever seen a coilover car. I always worked on big springs. We and this on and on through the years, we got to helping different guys that come to my dad and want us to help him learn. We got Nate Monteith, and took him as a kid. Keith Stiltner raced against Scott. He kicked our tail pretty regular. 98, somewhere in that neighborhood, I decided to. I didn't have any advantages, so I started working on shocks. I said that's the next step. So I've been building shocks ever since. I went on to be the crew chief for Henderson Motorsports Pro Cup team for several years. Crew chief for a while on their truck. Then went to work for NASCAR, and that's where I'm at now. That's 30 years as a fireman. Now I'm retired and doing the honeydew list.
That's awesome.
All right, and then finally we've got Mike Bushee over here. We haven't really decided what he does.
He's a legend.
We're not really sure.
That's funny right there.
He does a little bit of everything.
I don't know if I can top what Kenny just said right there, but my early memories of racing was I was born up north in Massachusetts, and I grew up down here, so I've been galvanized, as you would say. That's why I don't have an accent from up there. But anyhow, my dad started racing when I was little. He raced snowmobiles on Lake Champlain, New York, and I remember that well. And then we moved from there. He started racing cars at Lebanon Valley Speedway. He finished third in his first race and won his second race he ever ran. So after that, we moved down south and we started racing back in the 80s at Wilson County Speedway, Wake County Speedway. Everywhere on the East Coast, we would run. I helped Urban Reesby for a long time. He was like another father to me. I grew up with kind of like 2 or 3 different dads, through racing, and got several jobs building race cars. I worked for Joe Walters at Phase 2 when they were in business for a long time, and went from there. In 2005, Kirk Leon bought Southern National, and this was my first time as a tech man. I was helping Kim Shaver back then, and Charlie Lamb. They had the racetrack. They was going out. Charlie was leaving. He helped me a lot, to get going in the tech side, and Kim Shaver did. Well, me and Kim were going to work together the following season, and Kim got sick. And it left me doing all the classes pretty much the whole next season by myself. So I learned pretty well then, how to work around the tech business and how it was going to be. And from there on, I worked Southern National until they closed, and then when Mike Diaz opened it back up, 2012, I worked with Mike then. But I worked with the Mass Series with Ron Barfield for the last 4 or 5 years, and done several other stuff with NASCAR. Was the Cars Tour tech director for 2 years until David come on board. And after that, I've been on and off working for several different things with Diaz at Southern National and with Ron still, because my son races. We race a limited late model, and we're trying to get him back going again. I've kind of put him off for a long time, but now he's got more of my attention than anything in racing right now. I still do a lot of it. I still respect a lot of the officials that I've met along the way, and if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be in it right now still.
So what's your official job title for this year?
Crew chief.
Crew chief?
Yep.
Crew chief?
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess now that everybody's introduced and you guys are kind of familiar with the voices out there, for everybody listening, we can dive on into some of the topics of the night. Obviously, the biggest topic here lately has been spindles. So I'd like to get you guys' take. Whoever wants to go first can start. Or nobody.
Ain't nobody like
go with it. I think you should go with it. Yeah, you should.
Dive right in.
Anyway, I guess I kind of hadn't been on the tech side this past year, so I kind of I guess step back and take a look.
Sure.
Look at what's going on or whatever. But it's Roger alluded to it. The whole sport is built around just getting better, making things better. The rules are in place to try to control costs, mainly for safety purposes. But anytime a rule comes out, people's going to try to make that either it's a gray area. They're going to take whatever it is, whether it's a carburetor, a spindle, or whatever, and get all they can get out of it. So it's NASCAR's job, and I'm going to say NASCAR because really they're the king daddy that places direction.
Right.
Steps in and tries to control these costs. So, from my perspective, I think them stepping in and trying to control that is a good thing. Now, I think it's evolved from bump stops, and Roger knows way more than this, and these guys do too, probably me, because I've been a little bit out of it, but from the flexing of the spindles and one thing and another, and I've seen some of the fabricated ones break over the years, and you see a car keep losing camber or gaining camber, the spindle's fixing to give way. But I think NASCAR had stepped in and I think they needed to and say, hey, we've got to control the cost on this stuff. We're pricing everybody out of business, and I think they've done that. Now I'm probably going to step on some toes here, but
I hope so.
But this whole, in my opinion, the whole spindle controversy could be put to rest in a phone call. Mm-hmm. And that is if cars would get on board with NASCAR. NASCAR's come out and said, here's the rule, you can't run that spindle.
Yeah.
Okay? Then you have cars saying, we're going to let you run the spindle.
Right.
Right or wrong, it's all these rules. I don't think racers, they care about it because of the money. But I don't think a lot of times outside the money they don't care what the rule is. Mm-hmm. They just want the rule in black and white and for them to be able to go everywhere and not have to fight.
Right.
Whether they can run something or can't run something one place or the other.
Right.
So it either needs to be allowed across the board, but I don't think you can just open up everything. And NASCAR's tried to pull this spindle deal in, and unfortunately, if cars don't follow, listen, I think the cars deal is a great series. I don't want anybody to say that I don't like the cars deal, because I do. Right. I think it's a great touring series, but I do think if they would step in and say that spindle is not allowed, so it'd be a done deal.
You think that would help the local racetrack, is what you're saying?
It would help the local racetracks. I don't, the touring deal is its own identity per se, and I think it almost
I just went down this route with Kevin Piercy, so I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you believe that the touring guy, if you're saying that cost is the only real true line in the sand, right? That's kind of what we're saying, because we're just trying to curb the cost.
Yeah,
but
I would say it's more cost than it is safety, because
correct.
Really,
I agree with you.
Really, the new spindles out there would be safer.
Correct. I agree with you. But my question is, if it's only cost, do you not think that the Touring Series cars, in essence, I'm not labeling them as being privileged or anything like that, but what I'm saying is the people that run the Cars Touring Series that buy 3 sets of tires a weekend are not going to Hickory because they can't run a billet spindle. If they had to buy a billet or a standard spindle for $300 to go run Hickory, and they needed 2, so that would be $600, I'm betting you that most of them would do it.
I would probably agree. Some of them would. But I think it's the natural.
You think it's bad for the overall
racer,
sport?
And I've been there before. Is to say I don't want to change them if I don't have to, so I'm going to push, and try to get it to where I don't have to change it.
Well, since we've got David here, Lightning from the Car Store, let's first of all clarify that is the Car Store position, that you guys will allow it, and second, what's your thoughts on what Scott had to say?
Well, yeah, we're going to allow it, and I can say, yes, I understand what Scott's saying, and I have a problem with the spindle because there's the high-dollar spindle is being allowed, and the cheaper version is not being allowed.
Okay, explain that.
All right, you got a drop-forward spindle that's going to be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
It's $1,150.
Mm-hmm.
You got a billet spindle, which is not allowed, that's $950.
Okay.
I would be good with it if you wiped them all off the board and we went back to just one spindle.
Well, do me a favor and explain that a little further, because I don't know that everybody listening understands the difference between the two of those. So explain, maybe who they come from, who builds them. Explain that to us.
I'm not going to say who builds them.
Gotcha.
No, that's fine. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
The drop forward spindle has to go through 2 different steps to be built, which actually costs more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being a 3-piece.
So that's the Kyle Busch, and in quotations here, I'm saying Kyle Busch type spindle that Marcus Richmond.
Right, 3-piece spindle.
Okay.
The other one is one solid spindle.
Okay, now that's the one that Jay Hitchcock sells, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If they would have took them both off the board, I wouldn't have. We'd have followed right in. But
so they only took Jay's off the board. That's what you're saying,
right?
Okay. Now, is that your understanding, Scott? Is it that it's just that 1-piece spindle? The 3-piece is allowed?
That's my understanding of it. Now, like I say, I probably know enough about getting in trouble here, but the reality is my understanding is the billet 1-piece spindle that is the expensive one, that it's just not an off-the-shelf item.
It's not, and it's not winning races too, because Mike Bushee can address this, because Southern National, we had a winner that his car was all handmade spindles.
Yeah.
Top 4 at Southern National was hand built.
Yeah.
I understand that people are jumping on this bandwagon, but
we tried to make that a point when we checked the finishing order after the last Thanksgiving Classic at Southern National. Part of what we were trying to do is compare the latest lightweight stuff, that's on the market, that everybody is, if you're going to win a race, be competitive, do what the cars are doing like they did at the race at Southern National had. And we were bringing it to attention because that was the reason they were winning the races. Not the fact that Matt McCall's car was a 2010 PRW.
Yeah, that was a great point. Great point. I loved it.
Deke's car was a 2013 Hedgecock car. Yeah, they probably had updated stuff here and there, but
280 pounds of lead on the winner.
Yeah. Took his rear shocks apart to check his piston. The shocks had cobwebs on it from where the car had been sitting for a year.
Right.
So
I think that's great for people to know, though.
Yeah.
I think that's great for people to know. I think people give you guys a hard time a lot of time because they don't understand that you're gaining analytics behind the scenes that they don't know. How many people know that? Yes, we're looking at seeing what spindles are on what cars. We're taking all this. You may, as a racer, have such a small snapshot of what it truly is, where you guys are making your own analytics to try to make these decisions more informed.
Oh, yeah. On the level that we do it here with the weekly racing series with late model stocks, limiters, or whatever, there ain't a car out there that we really can't sit here and tell you that we don't know what somebody's got on their car, what they're running. If they change something on the car, we can really tell a difference. I know with working with Scott and Lightning, I haven't worked with Kenny at the racetrack situation, but we always governed with common sense, and we didn't belittle nobody. We don't belittle anybody now.
Yeah, but you could
we
tell,
just
right?
kind of work
like,
the same.
Most of the time, you guys can tell if it's something
That's
that
right.
you. This is something that I think people take out on guys that are tech guys, and I think it's not quite right for the simple fact of, listen, we all know whether we're right or wrong. 90% of the time, I'm going to say even higher. I'm going to say 95% of the time, a guy that really spends time with his race car the way he should be knows what's right and what's wrong. So the interesting part is you're not after everybody to just pitch them. You try to be understanding that this is the level that we're at, and here's what we're doing, and we're trying to do the best that we can with everything, but we don't have 400 officials, and we don't have, I think those are some of the reasons why.
And I agree with that. When I was racing, when we went to the racetrack, I knew whether it's right or wrong. Now, and just like Mike said, we try to use some common sense in it. There's a difference in cheating and failing tech.
Yes, right. I agree.
Or just trying to get back to the racetrack.
For sure, 100%.
Just something on there to try to get back to the racetrack.
I mean, if a car is supposed to have a 500 carburetor on it and it's got a 650, he's cheating.
Yes. Right. Correct. Correct.
But if a car comes through the tech shed after the race and he's getting all he can get and the thing's a 1/16 of an inch low on the roof height, I don't think he mounted the roof to be borderline, and he's got his heights to be borderline. But the bottom line is he didn't fly out mount the roof an inch low.
Right. His air's low.
He's tried to get all he can get, and it won't pass. So that's the kind of stuff you try to look at. Now, some of those rules are black and white too.
Sure.
It says 48 inches. It's 48 inches.
That's right.
But you can't label somebody as a cheater when they're a 1/16 of an inch low on the roof height. If they got a 650 carburetor and they're supposed to have a 500,
right, they're a cheater.
They're a cheater, right, in my book. So, and we all know, like you said, and the racers know.
If you don't, you're not working on your car hard enough. Let's be honest about it.
We always went to the racetrack to be on the limit, not to be a cheater. Now, have I done some things in the past that crossed the line? Yeah.
You were supposed to. That was your job, though.
So,
I mean, I'm not saying to get busted forever, but as racers, that's kind of what we're supposed to do.
That's right.
Like, I'm supposed to do that, and you just gave me rules to do it. How hard is this concept?
Right. Going back to the spindle thing, given what he said, talking about the difference in price, they outlawed the one that's cheaper. Do you still feel the same way? Do you feel like that they should outlaw the cheaper one too, or do you think NASCAR needs to actually step in and either do them all or not any.
Here's my stance on it. We need to keep cost in control.
Right.
Okay? So if there's a less expensive spindle, I think that one is alternative. That's the one that needs to be approved.
Yeah.
I guess the key on this is we got to get on the same page.
Right.
Cars and NASCAR, these guys that's got these cars have got to be able to go run the cars or run a weekly racetrack. And, I mean, that's the biggest thing I hear.
To me, the racetracks need to be on that same
motor,
and I was just going to, that's what was going to be my question to you. My biggest problem is there's a lot of knowledge right here. How does the local race, let's catch everybody at one time. How does the local racer intermingle with the Cars Tour deal? Because he doesn't overly now. I don't mean it badly. You get a lot of local guys, a few Hickory guys that'll join into your race, but not the mass quantity. In the old days when you guys, and I'm not dogging, but in the old days, wasn't that the deal? Greg tells me stories all the time about that was the deal, right? When a big race came to Hickory, you couldn't wait if you were a Hickory local guy because this was your opportunity that you've run 12 million laps over there to take a shot at these dudes.
Mm-hmm. And now
it doesn't exist like that now.
No. And that's I don't like that.
I don't like it either. I don't think it's good for the deal. Do you think the spindle separates that?
No, I'd say tires and cost and gas, and it just costs them too much to run the Cars deal. Right. If you just said they buy 3 sets of tires.
I don't disagree. So my question is to you, then we're really talking about two different people that want to race. Two completely different. We're talking about the Cars Tour guy conceptually has not been the guy that wanted to save money long. There's more trucks and trailers in there than there is at any racetrack you go to.
Right. You are talking about somewhat two different sets of racers, but at the same time, the Cars Tour does a lot to draw in those local guys. They give them free tires, and they got all kinds of incentives. I don't have them all in front of me.
I agree, which is one of the reasons I think the great thing about the Cars Tour saying, hey, we accepted it because of this.
Right.
Right? I applaud
like
that
the
answer.
explanation.
Yes,
yeah.
I 100% want you to know.
That made more sense to me than anything anybody's told me in the last 6 months.
This is the parameters we were given. This is why we did what we did.
Yeah. And
that's
it. And I mean, it's not too one statement that I probably shouldn't make, and I'm going to probably regret I ever said this. When it was brought up to NASCAR in April of last year, and it was okay at that point in time, before anybody had them.
Right.
That's, as we say, that's when the pregnancy should have been took care of.
I used it earlier. Me and Bushee were talking about it over there earlier. Same thing.
Because at that point in time, guys, it's 3 or 4 cars that got them, 5 cars got them. But at the way the rule was wrote, it met the rule. So everybody else started buying them.
Right.
So we went way too far. It's
I think that's part of they're missing the leadership from somebody like Kenny or Lynn when he was doing his thing when he was involved.
I think the biggest problem that you've got, let's look at the big picture. The problem you got is there's not enough late model stock cars to run at all these racetracks.
Nope.
They're not there.
I agree.
You get 10 or 12 cars, maybe. So this racetrack is going to do whatever they can, make any kind of rules. If a guy's got a big carburetor and he wants to run it, they're going to let him come do it. Right. Not saying all the racetracks. I'm just saying if you get 1 or 2 bad ones in the group.
But it happens. Wait a minute. You're not saying anything's untrue. You can run different springs at Hickory than you can at anywhere else. I don't mean that bad. I'm not crapping on Kevin. I'm just saying that he's got people that want to run those springs, so he takes the 2 or 3 cars that want to run them. He doesn't see a monster advantage right now, so he goes with it.
So there you go.
Yep.
So now they come show up. They can't go no place else, or they can. There'll be 3 or 4 want to go somewhere else, and they'll say, well, sure, come on. So the rule book, it needs to be printed on softer paper so you can actually use it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, no, I
mean,
applaud that. Yes,
that's
right.
That's what's
That's
going,
right.
And you can't, the racers are pushing it. The car builders are pushing it with little tricks and things of this nature that's not approved. But if I can get three, if I get 3 cars to run it somewhere, then we got 5 cars here. It's all over the country.
Boom.
The engines is the same thing. We'll let the engine guys do what they can add a little here and do a little there, and as long as it gets soaked in here and there, then boom, and there's nothing. What are you going to do? Then all these guys have lost all that money that they've spent because it's out of sorts.
So does everybody go under the same rules?
How are you going to do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys are the tech guys.
That's
That's what I'm asking. Can everybody go under the same
tech
rules?
guy don't make that decision.
No, I completely understand. Yeah, I don't mean it in that context. I just mean, will the racetracks? I guess that's a question for the racetracks. Will the racetracks go? And would you guys, as past tech guys or people involved in the sport in that way, would you think that it would be a viable option to the racetracks to everybody go in one rule? Because they'll descend, won't they? But they'll descend.
Yeah. Because
used to be that way.
Because their car count's going to be low this week, and they'll do whatever they can do to get the car count up next week, and really don't care about next month.
Correct. Short term.
That's a conversation that me and Roger have all the time. Every racetrack is in a short-term game.
That's right.
They're all in it.
Every week, whatever it takes this week to get them cars there, it doesn't matter what they can do. So it's actually not the spindle is just one of the things.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
just
actually
one cog
not.
in the wheel.
It's not the issue.
Right.
The issue is maybe it's come to the point back in the 70s, and I've seen it. I was a part of it. That late model sportsman cars went touring.
Yeah.
Maybe it's come to that point that late model stock cars need to go touring, and we go to limiteds for the weekly show or something. I don't know.
That's been talked about, and I think it should have happened, right?
Because the common everyday guy that's working out of his gas station garage back there can't race a late model stock car. They can't afford it.
I agree.
And actually, your racetracks are at the point that the purses they need to pay out to get the cars is just not there. I mean, it's not coming in the gate.
Well, again, they've gotten lazy.
Yeah.
Again, the racetracks have gotten lazy. They don't get out and hunt their sponsorships. They don't get out and do this. They lean on the back gate to pay for their purses. Basically, you're go-kart racing. You pay the entry fees and whatever, and then you get your money back at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So let's not just crap on the racetrack because they're not here. And I know you weren't, but I want to. You guys have all been inside a racetrack machine, right? You all know how that works, and I think a lot of people that listen to our show or the racer, me as a racer, I didn't know how much it was involved with that until I came to Performance Center, and then I got to see, holy cow, there's a lot more on the tech side, or a lot more. Before I just had to beat one or two tech guys, and now I have to beat tech guys from, Myrtle Beach to Kingsport. So the interesting part to me is, do you think that the racetrack doesn't see a way that they can be profitable by running a limited type car, because they need the tire revenue and they need all the other revenues to make that happen? So
they only need that because they're paying too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell you that. I know all the numbers from that side of it, and the one thing about it, they could run limiteds. Hickory pays like $500 or something, to win. I think for the limited division, there's no reason why they couldn't pay that off of just entries that don't really even need the tire money. They could go to a Y3 and they could run 2 sets a year, and they'd be golden. I can tell you that.
Yeah, but do you think people would still complain?
Well, sure. You're never going to stop people from
complaining. But you're going to lose all those people in the middle, is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I don't think you're going to. You're going to gain more if they can play a long-term game. You're going to gain more every time, no matter what.
I don't think there's enough meat to divide it. Is all I'm saying.
Well, there's not at the moment. That's why you got to play a long-term game. You got to lose for a short period of time.
Yeah, but okay. So at the economic state that 90% of these racetracks are in, do you really think that they can lose a big amount short-term and still make it? They're never going to make it long.
No,
so
I think the racetracks are, all of them are, are struggling.
I would not do what Kevin Piercy does. I talk to him often. I don't mean that honest. There's no amount of money. I don't care if I could win the lottery. Doesn't matter. I would not do what he does.
Listen, myself and Kevin's pretty good friends, and I talk to him often. And I can tell you, he has sleepless nights trying to keep the gates open.
I guarantee it.
No doubt.
It's tough.
He's not. He's not there to try to. I'm not going to use the word I want to use here, but he's not there to try to drag all the money that he can out of racer. But on the other hand,
they're all
he's
in
got
business.
To keep the door open.
Yeah, that's right, for sure.
And just like other places, the racetracks that I've seen do really well and have all the woo-woo to them.
Yep.
has been they've got other financial backing them.
Sure.
Yeah. And listen, I would not want to go buy a racetrack and have to pay for it today.
No.
You know, it was. No. I don't think that would be
I would.
the best
If I could get it cheap enough, I would do it. I would legitimately buy a racetrack if I could get it cheap enough.
One up the road to here, not far. That's a pretty good deal on it.
$399,000.
I know, it's too much. I
legitimately
think that I would, if I could buy it cheap enough, this is my next long 5-year plan. Langley knows me and him been talking. I'm legitimately going to buy a racetrack. That's going to be my next thing. And I'm going to run every kind of craziness in there that I possibly can. Meaning, I think these racetracks have no idea of their value.
So you think you could make plenty of money at it?
I think
I
do.
Because if you do, you got 4 guys here who'd like to come to work for you.
Yes,
I honestly believe
you pay well.
I honestly believe that I think you could put enough of a show on through enough different things that you could make it work. I think the way that people view things in your generation of the tech guys out here and the way that people view things in the younger generations are completely different. Yep. Like, I would broadcast every one of my races on TV. I would take it all national. I'd want people fighting in the pits. It would be that Bowman Gray show all over again. Like,
Jumbotrons with a kiss cam.
I don't even know. I don't.
Exactly.
I would make it a destination of places to go, people, things to happen.
And that's how you got to separate it from what they can do on their cell phone, sitting at home or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't think you got to separate it. I want them on their cell phones at home, tuning in and viewing and doing this and talking about how crappy it is and people beating each other up. And that's what I want. That's a joy to me.
Well, that's what they're not doing now. They're sitting at home on their cell phone. There's nothing up there cooking their interest to get them to the racetrack now to watch.
How's Dominion doing? I mean, how's Dominion doing? I mean, they opened up. They've got
they struggled with car count last year. They struggled a little bit with car count.
Yeah, but they're doing concerts. They're doing go-kart races. They're doing road races. They're doing club things. They're nonstop.
Racetracks have to be a multi-use facility.
If me and Langley don't kill each other, some big things are going to happen in the next 2 years.
Night of Destruction at Hickory. They're not on their cell phone sitting at home. They're there for it.
Right.
They want to see excitement. If you're going to put on a show, and to us, about watching a couple cars ride side by side is a show. Yeah. To the rest of the public, it is not. No.
No, they come to see wrecks. They come to see stuff get tore up.
Right.
I mean,
right.
If I go to Bowman Gray and I don't see a show, then I get mad.
Right.
Biggest night at Bowman Gray is when they have the trucks, the monster trucks, and the demolition derby. That's their biggest night.
This is the only thing I can say is I think the racetracks. My only way to say that something that I would like to see the racetracks do more is the way we're getting people engaged is not working. Let's be really honest. Like Hickory at the gate when they let everybody come down is a big thing. If you sit there and watch. I would say 90% of the crowd comes out of the crowd, walks down onto the racetrack, and spends a bunch of time. Now, after that, who is engaged? There's no engagement for them. They just sit there and watch what happens. And hopefully something good happens that they got videoed so they have something to talk about. Because otherwise, 1 or 2 cars run away from the rest of the field, and it's terrible, hoping that they get a late caution so that maybe there'll be some good racing toward the end.
And then after the race, back in my day, we stood on the back of the car and sold T-shirts.
Oh,
I mean,
so Bowman Gray does now.
Now you can't go down on the pit road because you'll get run over by a trailer trying to beat the other one out of the gate.
I think this is astronomically nuts too. Like for every young racer in the world, I cannot believe they don't do a T-shirt hustle. Like a T-shirt hustle, if you're a young local racer guy that will sit behind his. I watched Tony Stewart. T-shirt hustle to cup. I'm serious. When he was in the back, he would have T-shirts in the back of this vehicle that he had at these dirt tracks, and he T-shirt hustled himself to cup. But our young people don't T-shirt hustle at all. I'm sorry, I know that was off topic. I just wish that our young people could make some money. You see a lot of these guys, we're talking about Thomas Bean or your son, or we see a lot of these guys that are working very hard and struggling to try to get everything that they can get. And, I mean, you're the T-shirt wizard, Langley. Well, what does it cost to print a T-shirt? $5, $6?
Way more than it should.
Well, I'm just saying.
No, I mean, probably $7. It's probably
so you got $7 and you sell 10 of them for $20 after your thing. You just, I think everybody just wants it given to them.
Right.
And if I'm glad you brought that up because those are some of the ways that our lost arts
that racers were able to race.
That's right.
Yeah. Racers were able to race. And 90% of these two kids back here, they couldn't remember buying a T-shirt at a racetrack that there was. Because it doesn't happen. If you go to a dirt race, when Sammy Swindell used to sign T-shirts, they'd be wrapped around the entire racetrack waiting for him to sign T-shirts. That dude would be there 2 hours.
That's the way Bowman Gray is for the modified guys a lot of nights.
I mean
that's. But they've played the game and they've stuck with it, and that's a long-term thing. You watch the Bowman Gray; everything there's long-term. They've done everything forever.
And you said long-term. I mean, like when we used to run Hickory every week, 3/4 of the field were not really locals. They were from theirs, but they had ran there for quite a while. A lot of them nowadays are just in and out in a couple of years.
Oh, for sure.
So they don't get a fan base, and where when we run there every week. We sold a lot of T-shirts,
right.
but now there's really no identity to those drivers.
Right, they have no brand. They have no nothing.
Right.
They don't
100%.
use. Right, there's no interaction. There's no anything.
Right. Well, let's not go too far down that hole, because we can't put fans back in the stands in one night here. So,
I'm not thinking that, but I like the fact that we got some of these old school guys, and I don't mean to keep calling you that, but you got a chance to see it. Bushee and I were talking about this. You got a chance to see it when it was great.
Yeah.
So many people haven't gotten a chance to see it, so I think they don't have a vision to know even how to get it back there because they weren't around.
Or what the potential could be.
Right. Yeah. They just weren't there. Give us our next topic.
Right. Next topic is let's talk about the tech process at racetracks. One of the things, talking with racers, they say, well, I go over here, and they check it this way. Like, they have the same rules, not all of them, obviously, as we've established before, but they have the same rules, but they're teching it differently. What do we got to do to get all the racetracks on the same tech process?
You got to send officials to school.
Well, where's the school at? Can we start it tonight?
We could.
We got 90% of them right here.
I think that goes back to Joe Collins and Lynn Carroll and Kenny. When they were doing it. You had somebody that went from racetrack to racetrack that was a connection to try to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah. We don't have that.
We don't have that.
Well, when we went by the NASCAR rule book, when it was printed out,
like if there was a question
used for what it was intended to be, that wasn't an issue.
If I had a question at Hickory and you had a question at Southern National and you had a question at Caraway or every other place you've worked, from South Boston, everywhere else, everywhere, you could call Kenny or you could call Lynn or you could call and get clarification on it.
Yeah.
Now
that's gone.
Now we got to text each other,
and that's one thing I can tell you from working with Car Store and being in charge of the deal for the late model stocks. Same way with Lightning right there is basically, he's the man. He's in charge of what happens. If there's an issue with it, he'll present it to Chris and Jack, and they'll work through it. But there's somebody there with their hands on it at all times, and that's what I think where NASCAR has lost it. They don't have someone there. Local racetracks are a different entity from each other so much that this guy, we'll go to this NASCAR track, and they jack the car up and put it on 4-inch blocks and check ride height. This racetrack we'll go to, and they don't check ride heights. It's so far all over the board on the procedures. If we could just get back to, if we're running NASCAR rules, we're a NASCAR racetrack, we go by the NASCAR rule book. This is how all the racetracks are going to do it, and that's how it needs to be. Just the same way he does when he goes to all his Cars Tour races. They know exactly how it's going to be, unless there's something that they know ahead of time, that they know before they get there. It comes in an email or they call. They know how it's going to be from every race to every race. And that means a lot, and I think that's part of the lure to a lot of the teams that run the Tour now, is because they know it's established how it's going to be. It don't start out as a problem in April, and then when we get to Martinsville, it blows up and becomes a problem for everybody. And then we got people yelling and cussing at everybody. The NASCAR part of it, to me, just needs to have it needs to put somebody in control of what's in that rule book. If you are a NASCAR sanctioned racetrack and that's your rules, that's what you go by, that's how it is. And until they get to that point, I just see it being
getting control over.
Yeah, there ain't no control.
I mean, it's just like Kenny said, sure, a school would be great,
But we'd have to have one for every racetrack.
But who's
Well,
who's going to pay for it?
Let me chime in here. Just we had a chat line, a chat board, or whatever it was.
I remember that.
Every official could sign on to that. Crickets. Nobody wants to play. You've got weekend. Not everybody. I'm not bashing everybody, but you get 4 or 5 or 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 that's just weekend warriors. What was you bitching about before this started? That you was down in the junkyard on your day off and measuring a metric frame so you could take them?
Right.
How many officials does that at the racetrack? Yeah. You're talking about walking through the pit road and finding this and finding that as they're practicing and stuff. How many officials get out of the tech shed and actually walk down pit road and look at them race cars and come across something that's, hey, I may need to check on that. That's different. They don't even know. So, you know, they need and you need a school. The officials, that grip seminar that they've had a couple of months ago, wouldn't that be awesome for the officials to attend that so they could understand what the racers are trying to do?
I think we found Kenny's retirement project.
Listen, no,
I'm
going to tell you this. I think that the problem, I'm sure there was plenty of problems, but the biggest problem I think that you had when you were at NASCAR was you just couldn't have a voice. You didn't have a voice. Like the biggest problem was for the racer, you tried to make yourself accessible, but you didn't have a voice. People, they're going to have to get somebody that they allow to wrestle the bull themselves. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not the guy wrestling the bull, you have no idea how bad it is. So somebody's going to have to be able to make a decision. A lot more people will have access to you through coming through this show that didn't know maybe your position on X, Y, or Z. So where I think some of it gets stymied is it's almost got to be, I don't know, either through social media or whatever. Somehow you got to be able to identify that person that's in that position. Somehow has to be able to get the word out to everybody exponentially the way they digest it now, which is not through an email that has some rules on it, or we've already seen the way it's going with the Facebook and all. Right? It's not through that. It's going to have to be a way that has a broad reach because we're talking about different generations of people. The people you want to receive an email or it be in the rule book. Mm-hmm. Some 21-year-old kid he's never even seen the rule book, man. He doesn't even know the rule book. He was in here today, a 21-year-old kid, no idea, never even seen the rule book before. I said, man, I don't think you can do that. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, have you checked in the NASCAR rule book? He's like, no, I never got one. I'm like, you got a license, right? Yep. Okay, they send it to you in there. It's in that thing. Yeah, no. So wait a minute.
I don't even think they send them anymore.
You've legitimately been racing for 2 years and had race at a weekly basis at a racetrack and don't have any rules. No. Okay. We're in trouble. We're in severe trouble.
That's where the cars deal, what Mike was just talking about. They got somebody there with that voice to make a decision.
And he's got it on all platforms.
And NASCAR don't have
that. He puts it on Facebook. He puts it on Instagram. He sends out an email.
When you get to the racetrack, it ain't going to be a surprise.
Right.
Yeah, I'll admit, when I first started down the tech shed at Hickory, I kind of learned the hard way on one, and it was the ride height rule. Everybody was complaining that the cars that went out to qualify first or last had an advantage because when you come off the racetrack and you come to the scale, the cars that went out first, the cars wouldn't come back up in time, so that they'd fail the ride height rule.
That's right.
And the ones that went out last had an advantage because they had to sit in line and the cars would come back up. So we switched it up one night. I said, okay, everybody's complaining, we'll fix that. So we didn't weigh them when they come off the racetrack. We rode them right up to the height pad, and so they would all be coming in the tech shed. Well, 3/4 of the field failed.
Right.
You know. So and I had one of them, Darren Barnes, is a good friend of mine.
Sure.
Over the years, I mean, he looked at me and he says, "We don't know what to expect."
Right.
Right.
And that hit home with me that the racer, and you hit on it a while ago, the racer really don't care what the rule is. The racer just wants to know and wants it checked consistently. Right. And I think that's what you allude to, Amigo. When they come to the racetrack, they know how it's going to be checked.
Just want to know how big their box is to play in. Right. That's it.
So we changed the way we was doing at Hickory, and we started jacking them up beforehand and said we're going to get rid of that. And we done it every week the same way. Do they figure out how to get around that? Absolutely. That's what they do.
Right. That's what we're supposed to do.
But they do know where the box is. And as long as we said we stayed in that box and was consistent.
Just give them a box.
Well, NASCAR, you've been inside the machine of NASCAR. Will NASCAR allow somebody to take that much weight?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
I wasn't trying to pick on you. I wasn't singling you out. I just somebody that's been in the machine that knows how it works. I just don't see them allowing somebody that much control. I just don't see it happening, which is why I've become. I'm not a non-NASCAR component, but I like the Cars Tour because they do it the right way. They sit there. They let every NASCAR's completely screw it up. They sit back and they're like, "This is going to be great," and they take it right. And with no expectation, they allow the spindle or they allow this with no expectation. They let it race its way out, and then they make decisions. The Cars Tour, you guys dynoed all the motors. We talked about this a little bit ago. You gathered the intel and then made the decision, but it's based off of the information that you're provided at the time.
Real world information.
Right.
It ain't made up.
Right. And
or somebody lying to you about
somebody lying to you about it. There you go.
You showed. You had the dyno numbers on your phone from when you dyno. That's
right.
pretty cut and dry. Kevin, I know Kevin Piercy goes and dynos when you were, and I think you guys dynoed. There's a cut and dry things, right? Like, I just don't understand. I almost think that NASCAR wants to lose. I almost think they want to lose by the way that no good business ever would let its dealers run amok. If I had chassis dealers all over the country and they were cutting pieces off and moving them in different directions and doing this and it completely, if every Ford dealer in the country put different wheels on that represented their Ford deal, Ford would tell them no way. Every NASCAR racetrack that we go to has a different set of rules. That's not a brand.
It's
not a brand.
NASCAR's business model for the short track racing sucks.
It's terrible. Right.
It's terrible.
And we're getting laughed at by everybody across the country about it because this is home base for NASCAR.
Sure.
Yeah. We're its closest reach in our area, and we're getting laughed at by, the Southern Short Track Series with the Supers and all that. They're all sitting back and laughing at what we got going on.
Yeah, but
because we can't govern consistent.
Right.
Like it used to be for so long in late model stock. You knew what the rules were.
But somebody fell on the sword.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
But I'll tell you what happened. What do you mean? No, everybody knows what happened. Brooks went down there and said, listen, everybody can kiss my hind end. This is the way we're going to do it. If you don't like it, I don't care if you're Stephen Wallace, Johnny Billy. I don't care if you own Jegs. I don't care what you do. You're done. Good luck. And what happened is it went through a thing where everybody was mad. Like I watched Stephen Wallace one night try to choke. I mean, they were screaming at everybody. But you know what? The tech still won.
Right.
And Steven loaded his stuff up and raced again the next night. But everybody respected that decision. Yep. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's where the disconnect comes. There's nobody. Who's going to – that's the question. That's what we need you guys to solve. Who's going to fall on the sword and say, maybe it's Lightning. Maybe it's you. Who's going to fall on the sword and say, I'm the guy that's going to take control of the tech and be the complete prick? Because that's what you're going to have to be. Them people hate him down there. Legitimately, as many want to kill him as respect him, Brooks.
Yeah.
But he's good for the sport.
No,
because he doesn't let anybody get away with anything.
The car counts that are at the World Series of Asphalt this week are there because of him, 99% of it.
Right.
The modifieds,
the racers say that.
The
racers
and that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I think the racer is dying for someone. I think this is why you were successful. The racer is dying for someone that they respect, that yet has a brain.
Yep.
You were successful at Hickory. I heard you many a time tell Kevin, man, I don't think that's the way we should do it this time. Do this. Yeah. And I don't mean that it was shady things. I'm just saying this doesn't really behoove that treatment that we're wanting to do here. Let's work inside.
There's just ways of handling the situations.
But until one person wants to eat all the garbage, it's not going to happen.
But how do we do that with NASCAR being the governing body if we're not involved with NASCAR? Somebody's got to get in there and make it happen.
I think there's an easy way to make that happen. Sure. There is nothing there's nothing in the NASCAR agreement with the racetracks that would forbid them to run by car store rules and to allow car store to govern that.
Right. Nothing. I think they should do it.
There's nothing. We literally could put Lightning in there, the top man, 100% right now. The racetracks would have to get on board, obviously. But there's nothing there saying that they can't.
Everybody is spun out. I wish everybody could see this.
We'll have video up later. That was a good moment. Everybody's just like, what?
That was genius.
What the hell did he just say?
Good.
Listen, I agree with that. It needs
the car store
it
seems
needs
to want to
be.
have the guts. They
Right.
seem to have the delivery
do the
system.
work.
They
But-
do
but
it.
But
if you don't think they do, you're wrong.
You got to follow one or the other, and I
Right.
guess that was
That's
my
right.
point on to start with on the spindles. It could be fixed by the cars following the NASCAR rule,
Right.
or
vice versa.
Either way, it's just we got to get them on the same page. I think cars does a lot of things. I think they use their brain a lot more.
Oh yeah.
They make better decisions.
You don't have to think. The numbers prove that they do.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the numbers prove that they do.
We went to the dyno this year 6 times. Just this year, just to make sure we had an even playing field.
Right. You work it like a business.
And what people don't understand is you use the same dyno, same
person.
temperatures, same guy running it. You don't worry about your top number. You worry about your splits. And that seems to work.
Who
It's
ate the
just
cost
like-
for all that?
Huh?
Who ate the cost for all that?
Jack.
Exactly right. That's what I want people to know that. People don't, hey, I go to this series, they don't provide me with anything. No. I don't think what you don't realize is they ate five cars being chassis dynoed, and these are some of the infrastructure and the bills that you got to pay for.
Anybody here at this table happen to know how many times NASCAR took a car to a dyno or an engine to the dyno? Yeah, that was the right number.
I don't know.
Y'all not speaking was the right number.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when I was at Hickory.
Hickory did.
When Kevin took cars to the chassis dyno.
But that wouldn't be
and
NASCAR.
stuff,
That would be
but it was
specific to a
on-
track.
But it was on Kevin's dime.
Right.
I just think that we have a complete situation of there's been no studying for a test, and it's exposing itself. It's exposing itself because there's just no studying. We have no. I'm not saying that you don't have analytics to people are running these spindles or doing this, but they're already 5 dynos behind the Cars Tour.
Yeah.
Right? He just said that they dyno 5 times, right? So NASCAR's already 5 dyno trips and $3,000 behind NASCAR right now.
But like now, when Kenny was there, he's the one, and he's got the name for the bump stops because Kenny understood bump stops, which at the time nobody else really did. And he brought it into the situation. Best thing happened in the world because it put everybody on a even playing field at the time. It throwed a lot of them for a loop. I mean, so, stuff like that we've lost. When he left, Lynn left, Joe left because I raced under Joe Collins too. But it's we have nobody. Les cannot do it all.
No.
He's got too much on him.
No, I agree.
And Glover, he's got too much on him.
That's
so,
right.
it's nobody to fall back to.
Right. So, and you say that, if I ask, all 4 of you guys right now, who would you call if you had a problem? Let's say you're at a racetrack and you have a problem and you got to call somebody at NASCAR. Who do you call? Do you call Les? I mean,
who do you call?
Can he tell you anything?
Yeah.
I mean,
you call Bushee. Or Lightning. Who do you call? Everybody that we call is in this room.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, because we had a few issues this year happening at South Boston. We're not going to touch on that, but we're going on. But we call Les.
I heard a few stories about one of them.
Call Les. He's on the airplane. He's got to get back to see the rule book so he can make sure he clarifies what we was checking. It's just that he's got so much going on. He's not dependable enough for each track to wear him down.
Wouldn't that have been much simpler if you were there and you're the car store guy and they're running by car store rules and you could have said, yep, that's right, or yes, or no, that's wrong?
Yes.
I mean, it's simple. Fixing this is simple. It really is. It really is simple. And I hate that we can't just go there. And the tracks can still get all the things that they get from NASCAR. And I know people say, well, NASCAR doesn't do anything.
They don't follow the same NASCAR rule now anyway.
Right.
What's the difference?
So, I mean, they'll get the perks that they see from the NASCAR side still. And then they got somebody to fall back or a company to fall back on.
Which tell them what the perks are, because a lot of people don't know what the perks are from NASCAR for being a racetrack.
Well, I'm a couple years removed, but I mean, I know, they get, some stuff from Whelen, and they get license money, some of that back to the track, and obviously the points fund and all those things. So, but all those things will still come, because most of the racetracks don't run by the NASCAR Whelen All-American Series rulebook outside of this region anyways.
And if
they don't even have that kind of car.
Then it forces NASCAR's hand.
Well, I mean, if nothing,
because
the greatest
what are they
thing
going
could
to do
happen,
then?
all they need to do is delete the late model stock cars from that rule book, and that will help start fixing things right there. I mean, that's all we got to do. Just
so
delete
in the
that.
NASCAR rule book, it's delete the pages and just say refer to car stores.
Exactly. That's all they got to do. That's all they got to do. I mean,
but if you go up north, SK Modifieds, great show every track you go to.
They pack them in there too. People love that.
But they have. Have you seen the rule book for them? A NASCAR rule book? They are NASCAR sanctioned.
Yeah. I have not seen a rule book for them.
Right. The rules are per track, but the tracks got together and wrote their own rules.
Right. I mean, and that's, you guys already have the template ready to go. And I'm not advocating against NASCAR in any way, shape, or form. That's just a way to fix the rules side of it.
A good way to unify it.
Right.
Unify the rules portion of it.
Well, there's a gigantic hole in the boat right now, and
you're right.
If something don't get done soon, you got the guy over there with the spindles. He don't know what to do. You got the guy over there with which motor you gonna bring this week, and that the motor updated the month. So I mean, somebody's gonna have to put a cork in that sucker pretty soon, or it's just
engine builders is getting fat, ain't they?
All the way around.
I don't know if it's just them. It's just something's got to happen.
Right now, with the engine deal, and I'm glad you brought it up because I've been waiting.
That was the next topic.
Coming up with it.
I'm ready. I'm ready to buy this.
All right. Right now, dyno sheets on the ones, the Ford, the Harrington, and the Chevrolet upgrade. Yeah. They did on top of each other. Please, let's just stop. Let's stop changing parts. This is it. Run this for 3 or 4 years. You got the Harrington making 515, Ford making 515, the Chevrolet upgrades making 490. Let's stop it right here and let them race, and stop putting them out of business by spending $3,000 every year on the engines. Because one engine's down, we got to do something for this one. Then this one's down, we got to do something.
Well, let me ask you this: instead of this one's down, let's do something for this one. Let's bring this one back.
Back down.
Let's bring this one back.
I've always thought the same
I've said
thing.
tapered spacer plate for years.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go dyno and throw a tapered spacer plate on there, whatever it takes to make it whatever it needs to be.
At Hickory.
Yeah, we done that at Hickory on the Ford crate at one time, but I don't understand that mentality either. It's always if something gets an advantage, you got to take the one that's less and pick it up to the one.
And all we're going to do is blow them motors up.
Right.
That's what we've done.
So then
that's we basically outlawed the 604 crate engine because the stuff won't stay together anymore.
Right.
That's it. The bottom end, we made the valve train better through trying to put bigger valve springs on them. Then the bottoms just exploded. Right, so it's just a back and forth.
Like
now we needed a valve spring.
Because this one's better, let's bring it back to where everybody else is at.
You keep doing upgrades to the Ford crate. You put a camshaft in it. You put lifters in it to get it up to speed. Well, all it does is get it to the next level for the next thing to break.
Right.
For it to blow up.
If you pull the one that has the advantage back to the others, then that advantage
that's
goes
simple
away.
with a plate.
I mean, that's the dumbest thing that I've heard is ever. And what do you? We're getting over 500 horsepower now. When are we going to put brakes on them?
That would be amazing.
Tip that barrel over you.
Wow. I mean, why don't we get back
over
here?
Should be. We should.
Why don't we get back to 400 horsepower so we don't have to put brakes on them?
And we could do that with plates. The cheapest way to fix it.
Sure.
I got a question for you, Lightning.
NASCAR's gone to 500 horsepower from 900. What do you think they're doing?
Right.
You talked about after Scott talked about the spindle deal and you guys allowing it, the engine side of things, why have you guys chose to just ride with NASCAR on that instead of doing your own thing? And I do know from talking to Chris Regal that you guys were kind of in the process of going with the plate, but why have you guys rode with them instead of doing your own thing?
Well, the Cars Tour's got a good group of cars.
Right.
But when we roll into a track, we try it, and the spindle deal, it's off the page. Engine-wise, we got to try to ride the same because we depend on picking up 5, 6, 7 competitors at the track. And we do at most tracks we go to.
Right.
So if you go in and you completely different, because we had no intentions of putting the cam in the fork.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked certain people to work with us and let's come up with a plan to slow the Harrington down.
Right.
Leave the spec where it was at. And a tapered plate would have been the simplest way to handle this and the cheapest way.
The cheapest way.
Right.
And
but now you've got to enforce
that.
You've got to officiate that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The problem for y'all is
if they don't have the new rods, then you're looking at $5,000 because they got to upgrade the rods too.
And as soon as they give the green light for Ford to do that, it's like wham! Now you have to follow it because
everybody
all
was
the
waiting
Ford
for the
crates now is
cams
going to have it. The
couldn't get them.
That's the
biggest reason.
When that come up, they should have put their foot down and said, "No, we're not."
Who should have
going
put
to
their
upgrade
foot down?
Well, there you go.
We've established that part.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Who should have put? Nobody. You saw it. Ray
Right.
Charles saw it, but he couldn't do nothing about it because he wasn't here.
Yeah.
Not to bounce back to the spindle thing. I don't want to spend all night on the spindles, but I do want to ask you one question that I meant to ask you a minute ago, and that is, if NASCAR comes out tomorrow and says that both of those spindles, the two types that you mentioned earlier, the 3-piece and the 1-piece, are illegal, what is cars going to do?
We're riding like we are. We're not making no more changes until June.
Good move.
Our rules are set, and we go to June before we need to address anything. We address it at that time.
Gotcha.
But see, we've already NASCAR's already run a race at Myrtle Beach.
Right.
And then we get another set of rules after Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
So that's
we may still yet get another one.
Oh, I think we'll get a couple more.
And I understand.
Depends how many people view this show.
Yeah.
We might get a ton more. Who knows?
But you can't keep changing rules. That's why one thing, all rules need to be out by December. That's NASCAR, the Cars Tour. I dropped the ball in the Cars Tour this year because we was trying to see what everybody else was doing.
Years ago, they were out in December.
You need them out in December.
Yeah.
That
I
way
think they're earlier than that now, with as early as Myrtle Beach runs.
Well, now
and I think it's gotten so much worse. Meaning, you can write it on my calendar. My professional teams will all have their cars in here November 1st. They will be lined up outside the door because they have 1 or 2 races left, and they are already thinking ahead about having their new car ordered. Usually, it's right before Myrtle Beach that the 400 my shop will be like overwhelmed with cars that they know they're done racing, but they would like to start getting worked on, and they would like to. So I almost think it's before that, if possible. I'm not telling you what to do. I think I'm appreciative for what you're doing. It's impressive the amount of people, because they almost all have full-time guys now that race your deal.
And when we used to race, Scott and I was crew chief and Carl Long, and we was doing stuff like that. We went to Myrtle Beach, and that was actually their meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they had their meeting for the rules.
Mm-hmm. Either there or Martinsville. I remember Martinsville. You always wanted to go to Martinsville because they announced
the rules.
The rules for the following year.
I remember that.
And
we did it a couple times at Myrtle Beach at the 400. Everybody kind of gathered in that tech shed, and we kind of talked about what different things we were going to do or whatever.
Yeah, I've been in that shed too.
That was never good in that shed.
The good thing about the one at Myrtle Beach is it's air conditioned. I don't care who we put in there. We was going under the car for a while. That's for sure.
We're closing the doors.
Yes.
Right. Well, back to the engines. Like I said, I didn't want to derail us there with spindle talk continuously, but back to the engines. I mean, you guys, you obviously think that we're on the right track. We got, they're fairly even.
Let's stop it. Yeah, right now.
Yeah, where the rest of you guys pretty much agree on that.
I agree. I just think. Go ahead, Kenny.
It's got to stop. You can't. I mean, you just can't continue to go and go and go. You're going to have to change the cars. You can't continue to keep putting horsepower in them motors. You're going to have to completely.
But I think you'll see continued horsepower. I mean, the engine builders are going to continue. So even though it's set now, come June, you'll probably have to make some adjustments because
otherwise he wouldn't have a job.
Right.
That's the deal, right?
Yeah,
everybody's supposed to fight so that he has something to try to figure out what to restrict. Is that not how it works?
But I think the best way to go is back them up.
Yeah.
Don't let everybody come forward.
Yes.
Right now, they need to start heading back down.
Yeah.
So Lightning is saying this is where we draw the line in the sand. I like that.
So.
I think that's a good point. I mean, this is where we draw the line in the sand, that this is what we're going to do. You know what? I will applaud you and the Cars Tour just for even being able to say that. Does that make sense?
I might be fired tomorrow. So.
No, you're not going to get fired. If you get fired tomorrow, come up. I'm looking to hire a couple more people. If you get fired tomorrow, come on up. I just don't. I think it's intriguing that. I appreciate you saying it. It means a lot to, I think, a lot of people that are questioning what to do, and sometimes no information is terrible information. So at least, you coming out and saying, hey, we've done this research. We know what these things are. We have the data that shows what it are. We've done our homework. Let's just race now is empowering. I think that's why you're winning right now. I really do. I mean, I think it's things like that show why the Cars Tour is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, if you do the homework, you win.
You guys mentioned brakes, or you mentioned brakes earlier, Kenny. Is that the only thing that you guys see that's kind of on the horizon of things that are either going to have to change or things that racers are looking for?
I don't know that it has to change but if they keep putting horsepower in the engines, they're going to have to stop them.
Right.
I don't know it for a fact, but at Martinsville this past year, I was told we had brake pads out there that was $400.
You did. You did. I will come completely on here and say, yes, you did.
That's getting ridiculous. Right. And these guys are putting rotors. Your top team's putting rotors on every race, brake pads on every race. Your low-budget teams are going 2 races and putting rotors on. That's a cost that just keeps building and building.
But do you think you can stop that?
I think
I think you'll have $400 brake pads if you've got 6 piston calipers.
Yeah,
on.
but I had $1,200.
Here's the one thing that you 4 group of guys know better than anybody else, and I'm going to talk from the racer side of it. If you only give me a $69 part, I'm going to figure out how to build a $400 mount so that $60 part doesn't move.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's it. That's the way racing works. You give me a GM bootleg caliper, I'm going to figure out how to attach that GM bootleg caliper to do exactly what I want it to do, and that's why I win. I think truly to 90% of the people, that's why the Bill of Spindle wins. They see in their mind, anybody that's in definitely the 4 group of you has taken off a GM3 caliper and seen the wear of a GM3 caliper, and then they take it off a billet spindle or one of these new, either one. Have you seen the pads look amazing?
Straight.
Right, amazing. Right. So I just don't understand why if we can't, I think we can go back from that billet spindle and reinforce the brake mounts and get that same wear. But if brakes are an issue, now we're going to spend $500 on some cheap part that they allow us. You understand what I mean? Racers are going to forever throw good money after bad. That's just the way we do it. You give us the rules, we figure out a way to brace that, make the $20 part a $400 part.
I used to spend a week or so fixing brackets for
the
brakes. Mm-hmm.
I don't think a racer is going to stop. I think the racer is going to continue to go on and strive and eat themselves because they want to spend more because we're looking for the next great trick and we're looking for how we can make this better. I think if you made a bootleg mount on that billet spindle, 3 people would buy them. Because I'm going to tell you that I would challenge this group that 5 people know where it actually moves. Does the spindle move? How much deflection's in it? People don't have any idea. They just buy. We need these. We see them over here. Everybody that's bought them, I've asked them, so you're having a big problem with spindle pin deflection? Well, we don't know. All right, wait a minute. So you just went and spent $2,000. I just want to be clear about this, right? Because I'm an idiot. You just spent $2,000 and you don't know why? Oh, no, these guys got them. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, tell me why, and I'll gladly tell you should fix that or you should. But they don't know. So I think some of what we have to realize is that racers in today's time, different than before, are looking for avenues to buy speed. I think in the old days, Bushee and I talked about this earlier, everybody sitting here, you looked at ways to build speed. Everybody sitting here looked at a way that they could fire up a welder or use a cutoff wheel or hang a body different. You looked at ways to build speed. Nobody wants to build speed anymore, except for Nelson and a few other people. And you know what? They win. Oh, they win because they build speed every week.
How do we penalize them for
You
using
can't
the
penalize them.
technology?
Right. How do you penalize them? You can't. They're not even in my cards. I'd love to, right? I would love to go off. But how do you penalize a guy that's doing his own due diligence and winning? You're an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, like the spindle with Marcus. I mean, when you started challenging him on what you were going to do with the spindle, that just was like throwing a switch in the race car and firing it up. His brain went to working again to try to beat you out of what you're going to trying to penalize, the spindle that they designed, and
And he will.
That's it.
Yes.
That's what they do. And they got the resources and the technology to do
But
it.
it's not even that. Honestly, I don't think it's even about the resources. I think if you make somebody mad enough, there isn't a single person listening to this deal or a single person sitting in here that you can't make mad enough that they'll do whatever to beat you.
Yeah.
Right. I would.
Like, it's a war. It's hard for me to sit in here with you guys for the simple fact of, I'm telling you, it's a war. I am there for one reason and one reason only, and it's to beat you.
Yeah,
as a tech guy or as a whatever, right? I mean,
right.
you've seen
as
it. Me and you went at it to death.
Right, yeah. And, I'll tell a little story. Me and Roger had a round at the racetrack last year, and, when it's all said and done, it's my fault. It comes back to, a guy calls you on the phone, and you try to listen. I try to be black and white on the rules. You try to treat everybody fair, but you got a guy that calls and once in a while and says, "Hey, I got this," and it just so happened he had the wrong sway bar. I didn't know the guy. Didn't know the guy from Adam.
I did. And just for anybody listening, I knew all.
Roger knew him. Trust me, he knew him well. So the guy shows up to the racetrack, and come to find out, it's he's pretty stout.
Right.
So, at that point, I've told him, so listen, I'll work with you on the car, this, that, and the other. So that's the kind of stuff we get into. You want to be black and white, and you want to follow the rule book, but then you try to help somebody out that you really think's coming there. It's first time to the racetrack, this, that, and the other. So it turns you into sometimes not being able to be lenient.
I agree.
To a guy.
I agree.
Because I got bit right there. I didn't know the guy on the phone, and the reality is it shouldn't matter.
And I'm
because
a dick
the
too.
rules,
Listen, I'm a prick. I knew what it all was.
Right.
I had it all set up. He was beat before I walked in the tech room. I had 2 sway bars. I had it all laid out. Like, he didn't have a chance. Right? But I'm that guy because I think people get pissed at me because I don't talk to very many people at the racetrack. I like to roam around and do my own thing. And the reason is because I like to look at what everybody's doing. And I see this particular day, I saw a guy that wasn't in my race car with a sway bar that was wrong. You lose. I'm there with one of my cars. The other car is faster. Me and you are fixing a fight, or I'm putting that sway bar
and the
in.
deal is, if the guy was parked on the back corner back there in a 15th place car, he'd have come up and thanked me. Thanks for letting us run tonight. This,
sure.
that, and the other.
Right, but he wins the race, and then it makes you look bad.
But he wins the race, and it's like, holy smokes! Here, you try to work with somebody, and you just get bit. So,
if you'd have followed the car store rules, they'd have been legal.
That's right.
Wow,
I like it. I think that's the best thing that's come out of this show.
But I'll tell you one other thing you was talking about being a competitor. Like whenever I was growing up and racing all the time, I was like you. I look back on it, and I made a lot of good friends later on.
Yes.
But during the time I was racing,
I
didn't have a whole lot of friends.
Yeah.
I didn't associate with them. They were some that helped me out get started.
100%.
Max Presswood and a lot of folks that helped you get started. But we started going head to head. He pitted on one end of pit road, and I pitted on the other. But I never really associated with competitors. Back then, I don't know how it is today. I guess kids play video games together and have a big old high time. But back then, if you were buddies with somebody, you end up racing them different. I mean, you
Right.
just. So I honestly didn't want to be buddies with with them,
Right.
Because I didn't want to have that restriction on me.
That's why I appreciate the Greg Marlowe, Dexter Knipe deal, right? Them two hate each other.
Yeah.
Dexter bangs him and spins him out to win Martinsville or something, right? And them two kind of hated each other. And now, like when Greg came to work here, they would go golfing. I'm like, what in the hell? You just would like to show Greg. What
Greg's
just
a good
happened?
example. I
But
raced
they
with
get
Greg
done
a lot.
racing, right? They're all buddies.
And me and Greg, I guess, respected one another, but we really weren't buddies. Me and Setzer, Dennis Setzer.
Sure.
You know,
You were there to win.
We were there to win, and we were not. We just did not associate with each other. Today, me and him would sit here and talk all day.
100%.
And so it's. I can relate to what you're talking about.
Speaking of Greg Marlowe, he's been chiming in a couple of different times here on the live chat. He said that brakes today are $600 per axle. Not sure, what else to go with that information, but he wants to know what's the black and white on the spindle, rule. Obviously, we know cars, whatever it goes, you bring whatever. But as far as say Southern National, like if for the Thanksgiving Classic, what's the black and white on the spindle rule?
I still got to work on it. I mean, it ain't cut and dried. I got a few more. I got about a month before we start racing, and I got to figure it out. Do I follow NASCAR rule book?
Does that really apply for your regular races, though, and limited?
It's going to have to if I got late model stocks coming in. Our rules are geared to get late model stocks. We'll see Terry Deese, and I mean, and he'll run Cars Tour some, and he'll come race with us some. But does he have to have two different race cars?
Yeah, but if you got a strong limited program, do you think it'll bleed over?
I think it will.
100%.
So, I mean, I got to stay on top of it. Spindle problem for late model stock guys, it's going to be spindle deal for the limited, just like the engines. You cannot – it's hard. You can do a one-off race without the Harrington and the Ford and stuff in there, but you cannot run a weekly program. To me, in our area, it's different in some other places.
Right.
We don't – without the limited – base where you're going to have enough limiteds to make a race. In a racetrack like Southern National, it's not like some others. 5 cars ain't going to put on a show. You got it, and you know that yourself.
There ain't a racetrack in America, I don't think, that 5 cars puts
some.
on a show anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Figure 8 racing?
Yeah.
There's actually several racetracks. Orange County, you don't need more than 5 cars there. I'm telling you. You get 2 of them, it's good. That'll be a great race. Last year, one of the best races I've seen all year was 7 cars. Carson Quapple and Chris Denny battled for the win at Orange County. Exceptional race. But at Southern National, that is not going to work for sure.
So, I got to go into it with, I got to work whatever angle is working with NASCAR because we are NASCAR.
Wait a minute. You're telling me you pay $40 or $30 to go watch one of these races and 5 cars roll out on a racetrack and you feel fulfilled?
Dude, at Orange County, absolutely. I don't pay to get in, but, that's beside the point. So maybe that makes me, a little bit more
I'm
lenient
just saying,
to
like
say
the
it's
normal
good.
customer that goes on a Saturday night to watch a race, the normal fan in the stands, I'm pretty for sure he wants to see 30 of these things tearing each other up.
I figured there was 600 or 800 people at that race. It was the season opener, and I'd say they were pretty pleased. I mean, you get a side-by-side finish at the line, guy, running the field down. I mean, it was pretty good. Really, really good. Back to Greg Marlowe. He's chiming in again. He said, who determines if it's forged or cast and then CNC?
For Greg and Roger's off the same page.
I love it. Right. I love Greg.
We sent a message to NASCAR. They're supposed to be getting back with us.
Yeah, that's what's going to be intriguing, right? Like,
wow.
See, you got to know at home he's exploding behind the computer right now. I love him. He'll come in here tomorrow. I get to hear all about it. It's a good. Right now, I want to have him on the show.
I do have a question about the spindles. Now, we had Thomas Scott last week talking about building his own spindles. Right. Now, where does that fall in line? Because you said the cheaper set are not legal. Now this set
legal.
Is, or
he
however
wasn't building a cast spindle.
Where does he fall in for building his own in his shop?
That's within the NASCAR rules.
Right. One of you guys take it, but explain to us what the difference between the spindles that they've always run and what we have now.
You go ahead. I mean, I can tell you.
Bushee will go with it too.
I can
Kilby,
tell you what they run in the past, but
that's what it is.
Lightning's more up to date on the new stuff.
All right, Lightning, you're up, buddy.
I'm telling you, Cars
the one
Tour
they
for
build
president
now,
right here.
the one like Thomas is talking about, it's actually hand built with flat metal, and it's built in a jig to hold everything in place. And his is actually the same type that 51 had.
Matt McCall.
Matt McCall had.
Yep.
Yes, they are legal. The problem
we built
is
them out of like 8 pieces.
Right.
Well,
the problem is your 2 other pieces is they're right there together, but the higher price one is legal because it's 3-piece, and the single one is not. The whole 1-piece deal is not, and it's actually a couple $100 cheaper on the spindle. Now the one like Thomas is doing, it's like $500 cheaper. So.
It's way cheaper. Right. I mean, I just saw them for $300.
So the high dollar one are CNC machine.
It's CNC'd out of 1 piece.
Yeah, out of 1 piece. Where the older style spindles are built by flat pieces of metal, and he's building his own spindle so he can change the spindle height, the pin position.
Now, is the metal material, is that a question as well on what they're using?
They're 2 different materials. I mean, one is like laser cut steel or material that you would use. You still buy the slugs, the bosses at the top. Most of all the pieces come from a machine shop, but the pieces that the Lightning is speaking about are machined out of 1 piece of billet. Or that's why Greg Marlowe is chiming in and wanting to know about forging and casting.
Well, he's also asking, the spindle rule said manufactured. I'm not exactly. I'd have to read the rule again. I can't remember. But I know. I kind of know what he's asking. I mean, it's the way that the rule is written. It really, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, we need to get my buddy Jeff Day out here one time.
Yes.
And if you want to see a 1902 spindle on display, Performance Center's got one right outside the front door.
That's a great doorstop. That thing's been here for 25 years.
It was here when Tom was here.
It came
I know
with the
that.
building. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I got it and a couple of guys came with the building when I bought it.
Somebody chiming in here wanting to know when the start of Greenville picking season is. Obviously, that's March 2nd, 10,000 win limited race. But I don't want to keep going down the spindle road here, so let's jump over on something else. What can we do to, obviously if the engines are in line, now we feel like, obviously I know you guys mentioned brakes, but is there anything else that you guys see rolling through the tech shed that you go, man, this is going to be a problem soon?
Well, it's an issue right now in super late models, the Gen 6 body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long it'll be before that becomes an issue in late model
I am told it will be manufactured for late model stocks sometime later this year. So.
And is it the same situation as the super late model is 5-star, the only one that offers the body?
So I got a good question for y'all. What's the first track that's going to approve that? Southern National?
I am going to plead the fifth on that.
It'll be the first track that the first car's got one shows up.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
That's what it's going to be.
No, I think they won't approve it, but South Carolina always seems to let all those bodies run first.
Somebody told me
that
somebody has one to run limited, has one of the super bodies to run limited with at Greenville, so we'll see if that's true.
Yeah, you always see them, even when AR did that deal where they did it different, when they come out with the Mustang nose, it was more of the South Carolina tracks all adopted it and allowed it. We sold tons of them down there, but you never really, Ed Cox kind of had one with his little limited late model series, but other than that, they started down there.
Right. UAR approved it, I remember.
Yeah, but nobody ran it.
Yeah, just a couple guys.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing else you guys see coming?
I can see something that come up, and I had, like I say, out of the tech shed last year, so but something that I seen coming down the pipe was, and Roger might be able to expand on what's going on this now, but it wasn't his cars, but I seen some cars at the time start pulling the door bars in.
Yeah.
So which ones?
The door bar, the right and left side. Well, I think it's both sides. The door. It started with the right, I believe.
Correct. The rule just says it has to be concaved.
Right. So at one time they were out on both sides, and now the door bars have come in. So as time goes, they go in. They work them in a ½ inch, then they work them in an inch, and then they just keep going until they figure out.
Turn around and look at that car right there. What's the right side door bar? There's the top ones in there.
This is not good for show and tell on the radio.
Right. It's just completely. Almost everybody's doing it that way now.
Right.
The rule says that it just has to be concaved.
Yes.
So we've put some bend in them to make them concaved. The one thing that I find interesting about that is that doesn't seem to affect safety for the simple fact of it's on the right side. Now, we didn't compromise the left side because I think that the cars are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the drivers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger beside the little kids, right? Mm-hmm. So the interesting part is we had to leave most cars. I think the left sides are all in maximum of out. But if they would have had that rule more clearly defined,
right.
And the problem is now the rule isn't clearly defined, so now I got 200 of them things out there. So what's going to happen now?
Exactly. So now the racetracks are put in the spot when they do come out. If they do come out and correct that rule, and you got all these cars out here, the racetrack's going to turn those cars away.
For sure.
It's
right.
not going to happen. But I can say that was something that I seen transpire.
It's something that I worry about. To be really honest with you, I really worry that we're going to get our customers channeled down a hole. This is why I could never be an engine builder. I worry that we're going to get them channeled down a hole that we can't get them back out of. Most of the time, if you buy a car from me, I can tell you that for the next 5 years, you'll exponentially be able to race it pretty much everywhere. We can put a couple different parts on it here, but it's not completely throwaway. Where the engine deal has become, and that's why, Lightning, you've made me so happy for you to be here. The engine rule has kind of become, hey, we keep this for like a year and a half, and then we either put it back there and wait for it to cycle back through, because it will come back through in about 5 or 7 years. It's going to be legal again. You're all laughing. It's fine. I don't mean it. Is that not what happens?
Yes.
But the chassis deal, I super worry that once those things start happening where we get boxed in, then we lose.
Yeah.
Then we lose because now we have a safety problem. Now we have all these problems that could truly hurt us in the end.
And that's what I say. I just see that starting to close in. Yeah. Well, it's door bars tomorrow, and it's,
some of it,
or today.
You look at the height of the door bars have even changed.
What's it going to be
when we
tomorrow?
walked in here, my son, he's seen our stuff's old.
Sure.
It's nothing brand new up to date. He's seen one of your cars over there with just a chassis. He said, Dad, I really like how the door bars come up on the side over here on the driver's side a lot higher than some of the stuff that he's seen before.
That's
I
LaJoy.
said, that's safety. I said,
LaJoy's been beating me for years and years and years. Randy LaJoy and I are really good friends, and he busts my chops on a consistent basis because I think about safety, but Randy thinks about safety. Like, I think about metal crushing, and he thinks about headrests and ways we should put things in there, and he's been real influential to me about different things he's told me, and really Greg helped me a ton try to sturdy everything up back when we kind of went to this style deal to make sure that we were going to have the safety. I don't know how we're going to stop racers from hurting themselves, because I am as big of a victim to my own circumstance as everybody else, right? I want to try to do things differently. I'm always looking for that something better that we should do. Racers are never going to be complacent, at least not good ones, right?
That's right.
So I think we have to take the rules as an outline, defined area, and I would like to start some kind of a deal where we could get some of you guys that were used to dealing in rules that were so much broader, because the rules in which you folks had were not. Everybody thinks these rules aren't clearly defined. The rules you guys had were not clearly defined. Way less clearly defined than this was. It didn't say can't be cold rolled steel, has to be this. They didn't say. Lighty's laughing. I wish you could see him on here, because it didn't say that. And people want more definition now, and need to understand that was some of what made the evolution of the sport great, was that there wasn't such clear definition, and it gave you guys things to look at and be like, wow, that was good, or no, that wasn't. Take that and get that out of here. We can't do that again. And we all kind of work together, but it doesn't seem like that's the way now. Well, and that's what I want to get back to.
And innovation is what built the sport from the early days. There was, guys in the shop smarter than the next guy.
Working on their stuff.
It still happens today, but I think it was big steps years ago. Now you're looking for smaller gains.
Yeah, but from what I gathered years ago, nobody wanted anybody to know anything, which was cool,
share.
Right? Like if you worked at Kale's, you were on Kale's deal. If you worked somewhere else, you were on that deal. There wasn't this big organization of sharing. So do you think the big organization of sharing has caused things to spread so much quicker, which causes these epidemics where you have a spindle problem? Because in the old days, if we didn't have Facebook and we didn't have X, Y, and Z,
you had to stumble across it.
Right, you had to, right. And if Langley and I talked about this off air, I think C.E. Falk is legitimately in charge of causing this whole spindle debacle. I really do.
Wow.
No, I don't mean that bad. They existed and they were fine, right? And now all of a sudden, CE's got them, and they get a picture shown of them.
Well, no, it wasn't his. I guess he took a picture from what
the
story I put
and then it explodes. The exuberant potential, and now everybody's hearing rumblings of all this. So you guys just weren't used to dealing with that, somebody putting it on social and it going nuts so that 12,000 people saw it, which is in itself a good thing. I'm not saying it bad, but how do we address it now that there is all that exposure? Because one thing that you put out on a post or NASCAR puts out on a post or Cars Tour can go completely off the radar in an hour and a half.
Yep.
So because of that happening, how do you think we best service the racer themselves? Through using the same platforms they use? Through –
Yes.
I mean –
well, yeah, you have to, I think.
Yes. I mean,
that's the world we live in today. So, the world we lived in before, it goes right back to what you said earlier. You built speed. Nowadays, you buy speed. Back then, the groups kept stuff secret. They blacked the windows in, wouldn't let nobody in the front door.
Right.
And nowadays, they don't do that. They call Roger.
But is it because they're looking to monetize it? Like the people that built it, they didn't offer to sell a bunch of those spindles early on. They Nelson and Richmond, they kept it all pretty under wraps. They were wanting to give it all away when they had it. So how do you? I think the evolution is just so much quicker for you as tech guys because you don't get the 4, 5, 6 races to see what people got because everybody almost knows what everybody's got. So it happens instantaneously.
Yeah, no, you got to be on it, and you got to. And when it does happen, you got to react to it and make a change if it's needed, or at least address it. Don't let it go 6 months and then it's so far out of control by then.
But that's why we're proving why the Cars Tour is getting the results that they do.
Because I agree.
And you were a part of it, right? I'm not saying it because you're not. You were like pointing over. No, you were a part of it because you made changes that needed to happen and didn't have to go through 12 steps of NASCAR bureaucracy to make that happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to say no.
Yes.
That's it. That's
it.
I don't like that. Take it off.
Right.
No. Right. Well, it's not in the rule book. I don't care.
Right.
Take it off.
Yeah. Right.
And then you've got time to deal with it.
Yeah, I got a couple of those NASCAR detrimental. They faxed it to AJ Foyt's place. Actions detrimental to NASCAR racing. There was no description of what I really did, but the fax still came with the fine.
Right.
I mean, and officials doesn't do that now. They don't take charge.
I agree. I agree completely. I hear stories all the time. So a lot of times people say, well, man, y'all publish everything on Race22. Man, anything that happens, anybody says anything. No, man, we don't publish a 10th or less of what people actually tell us. And I'm sure they're true stories. I'm sure of it. But Darren Hackett chimed in here. He said that the problem is when Winston left, assume he's talking about NASCAR, obviously there, with the money that was keeping everyone on the same page. Then NASCAR and tracks started looking for money other places, which led to rules, parts being approved for sponsors, and no one is allowed to go around and keep changes from occurring and keeping everyone on the same page.
Well, then did he get out of the business? Is the only thing I can tell him. Get out of the short track business.
Well,
if you're not going to govern it like it was,
I don't think that's what he's saying. He's saying kind of everybody kind of went in that mode.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But if NASCAR is saying the sponsorship and the money from that is what kept it moving, and we're not moving in that same direction anymore because of the
But what he's trying to say, and I work for him, so I'm going to take up for him here. Winston would come to your racetrack and tell you what you could do. Mm-hmm. They would tell you what color to paint the walls.
Right.
They gave you the paint.
They gave you the paint. They'd send a man, Jeff, his daddy, send him to your track to paint it for you. But they kept the racetracks all together. The sponsors went around and made sure the racetrack stayed on the same page. We don't have that anymore.
Right.
Same thing we've been talking about pretty much.
Somehow.
That's why we're all going to go to Cars Tour Rules.
I mean, telling you, it's a fix. I mean, it really is.
It's a fix for the short track. I like it as an exceptional late model stock car thing. I really.
I mean, it's a fix for our 13 to 20 tracks, depending on who's operating at the time. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a fix. We're all, that's the group of cars. I mean, everybody tries to make super late models work. I mean, Pass has done it.
Somebody called you today,
Concours
Roger, and said, "I'm going to run Hickory every week. I need you to build me a car by the NASCAR rules." And then he also said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to run cars races too. Build me a car for a cars race." Is there a difference in cost?
No. I think they're yes and no. I think that the sad part is now, like anything else, budget determines this sport. Meaning, and I feel so guilty asking it, but when people call me and want to buy a new car, they get mad at me thinking I'm trying to extort all their money, and I'm really not. What I want to know is how fast you want to go with how much you have.
Mm-hmm.
Because we could legitimately build a car for probably $35,000-$40,000 that you could brand new run at Hickory. But my Cars Tour cars are $49 just from the extra stuff that they put on them. You know what I mean? They want rem polished everything. They want, you understand what I mean? They want all ground tube. They want most of those guys, they want quality over quantity because they're racing as a profession. The guy that comes in at 5 o'clock after working his job, that's acceptable to him to have a non-ground car, to have old set of non-Moog racing ball joints in it, right? Those things are acceptable to him. The interesting part is it's about people's perception. People perceive that the Cars Tour has to have the baddest stuff of the bad, where people at Hickory think that I can just go run. But what they don't understand is if they want to win and they got to race against two people that compete at the level that the Cars Tour competes, you best start working.
Right.
You
and
best
I guess
start
that
working.
was my point when because one of the things you hear is it's too expensive to run a Cars Tour deal. The tires and this that, and the other.
Sure.
And they say you almost have to have a different car. And in a way, I can see that, just like the spindles, unless you want to.
Yeah, but I think it's bolt-on parts, right? Let's be completely realistic about this. It's not like, right? It's not like you can move the clip of 6 inches to the left in one. And let's be realistic. It's no different than kids that race go-karts. They put different motors on different cars. I used to watch an old timer that he raced, and he put he only had one car, so he'd race 3 different motors on the same car in 3 different classes. They'd split him up. And I don't think the car is monstrously different. I think the Cars Tour, to compete, a guy has to bring his A game because he's held to that accountability, because the other people in the Cars Tour bring their A game, so therefore it ups it.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at, and it's kind of the point I was getting across, is a lot of people feel like they need to go by NASCAR rules because it's less expensive. But what you're just saying, it's where you want to run. You want to run up front, or you run a fifth. So, with that said, if there's no different really cost savings, then why not follow the cars rules?
Right.
If there was a huge safety issue or a cost issue, then I would say lean back toward the NASCAR side. But
Lightning, do you think there's a performance event? I hate to go to the spindle deal because I've so had enough of it, but I want to make one thing that I'm having a real hard time with. Beside the brake,
brakes,
we've tested this. Beside the brake deal,
nope.
In wear, do you think there is a lick-loaded difference between the deflection in the 2 spindles?
I don't.
I don't either.
But
I mean, we're not racing at Atlanta, right? We don't have a Cup car with 3,700 pounds of load on the right front. I mean, do you? I think that's the biggest misnomer. To be 100% honest with you, I think people don't know, so they think they gotta have it. I think people don't know what it does or how it affects, and you've done the research and put the time in. Do you really believe, from a Techman standpoint, that at your normal racetrack beside Martinsville, I'm going to say beside, because Martinsville's heavy braking, right? So I think it falls into that criteria of it could be an advantage there. If we were able to shore up the brake bracket in some way that there would be any kind of advantage to the racer. This is you as a tech guy that's have all the analytics behind it.
If you was able to stouten the brake bracket up, would be the best thing could happen at Martinsville.
I agree.
Back to what Scott said, Pulliam won at Myrtle Beach this year with a car that was really out of date. Mike.
You mean Matt McCall, right?
Matt McCall won with a car that was out of date at Southern National. Dick McCaskill won at Orange County with, 2013 car. Yeah. It's still, like you said, in the bolt-on stuff. But when I was with Carl Long, Scott Riggs was anal on everything had to be free. Everything, keep everything free turning. New stuff. So we were spending money then to run All Pro and Late Model Stock, just like they are now.
He's cheap for his kid. You got to remember that was for him. He's a Jew now. He don't do stuff like that because it's for his kid. I just want to say that on air. He and I are really good friends. And when he was racing, because I remember that time, it was Katie bar the door. His kid, we can just weld that. Just send me the clip. I'll put it on myself.
But time-wise, if you spend any time and you're going to want the best, and when you go to a racetrack, you go to win. I don't care who you are. You go to win a race. So you're going to do your best to have your best game. I don't think the cars to a cost no more, especially with Jack, with his benefits he gives.
The incentives.
Oh, for sure.
With 3 race money, your turn 12 money. I mean, it's money to be got. I mean, just like Orange County with his 30,000 to win race. I mean, that's money to be got. Of course, you're going to have some A games there, but if I had one, I'd load it up and carry it. I stand a chance of them wrecking.
That's right.
Right.
I mean,
that's 100% right.
Right. I mean, it's money depends on how much you want to spend.
That's right. How much you want to end up with depends how much you want to spend up front.
If he's one of them A game cars, though, you can't wait for the spindle to break because it ain't gonna break.
No, but I
just don't. I think there's so much being made about this, and I really think it's kind of a complete deflectionary process. Meaning, I don't think it's where it is, and somebody's getting ready to make some money off it, and I hope they do. I hope they crush the world. But I'm just going to keep building my fabricated spindles here. And, I mean, we ain't break any in years, so I'm just going to keep going with that, and we're going to work on the brake bracket, try to not run everybody out of business.
A couple of different comments coming in. Jamie Sweeney chiming in said that late model racing, he sees late model racing going in the direction of Grand National. Talking about earlier, we were talking about, how they split off and went in a different direction. He said his dad ran around short tracks, and the Rich took it over, and now it's just like Xfinity. He said, tell me we aren't making another Xfinity direction division. I would say he's probably partially right there.
I would agree with that, too. I would kind of agree with that.
David West chiming in said that somebody needs to call Deke McCaskill and ask him what you can run Cars Tour for and compete. It can be done, but you can't buy talent. They don't CNC that or forge it.
That's a true statement. I actually like that statement. I mean,
because
go
I
ahead,
worked
Bushee.
a mass tour. We had 8 different winners in 8 races last year, and I got 3/4 of the ones that ran with us last year. Out of all them, there's 3/4 of them are happy. I got 2 or 3 of them that complain about the guy that's been winning. Right. And like I told him, I said, until you can reproduce his DNA and be as good as he can, you're not going to be. You're going to have to get on his level driving.
Right, get to work.
And work on the car to beat him.
Yep.
Not me in the tech shed, not Ron making his rules or whatever. You got to have to actually outrun him.
Yeah.
And it just some people don't want to do that. They just rather complain about it and go from there.
Well, y'all was talking about the old timers earlier. As an old timer, you didn't go complain. You figured out what everybody else was doing, and you tried to one up the next time you showed up at the track.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Mark Martin and Gary Blue in it, and they were talking about different things that they did over the years and seen on each other's cars. And he's like, well, I didn't go tell the tech guy about yours. I just went and built one like it. You know, I seen what you were doing. That's what I'm doing.
Kilby's gone. That's where me and him got into it. I said, listen, I'm cool with this sway bar. I'm just going to put mine in. Right. Well, no, you can't do that. No, I'm cool with it. I just want to slide mine in there so I can run it also. That's where we started our huge fight. I'm cool with him doing it. I just would like it myself.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what racers used to do. Now we just now they just get on Facebook and Twitter and cry about what everybody else has got.
I never complained. If I seen it, I went back and built it.
Yep, worked harder. That's been an overwhelming statement on this show that like many of the people that we've interviewed that have done really well, that's kind of been their thing, right? Like I just work. I just work harder and more and harder again. Then when I want to go home, I work more, and those are the guys that end up being successful because they put in the time.
Right. Got a couple questions for you guys individually here. I'll start with you, Kenny.
Oh boy.
Explain when you were at NASCAR. Explain to us what your role was, and what you learned there.
What my role was.
How you would define it.
I wish we had video. His face right there was
we
really
good.
We
got video.
That
we'll
was
put
really
it up
good.
at some
He
point.
looked like, oh, man, I got to think about how to answer this one.
I guess I was the technical liaison between the racetracks and NASCAR. For that, I guess.
Okay. What did that, for you, what did that entail? What were you doing specifically? When you were at the office, what were you doing? And when you were at the racetrack, what were you doing then? I mean, we've already established they were all on different rules, and they have been for a while. So what were you doing?
I was trying to make myself accessible to the racers. And when they had problems, I wanted to listen to them. If they wanted to put a 2x4 in the trunk, I kind of blowed that off. But, if you get 4 or 5 guys coming, hey, we've got an issue right here. We need to work on this. We need to do that. I made notes.
Right.
And then I would be into engines, cars, or whatever it had be. And then I'd start calling around if it was a car issue, I'd start calling around to the car builders and ask them about, what's this? What's going on here? How can we make this better? What rule do we need? What do we don't?
You came up here. I'll give you credit on that. He came up here. Lynn, I've owned this place 10 years now. Lynn has been here one time, and you've come one time. That's the only buddy from NASCAR. And I think we asked you to come, and Greg and I sat here, and you came and helped us clarify a couple rules. But other than that, we've never, ever seen any kind of representation.
And that's basically how they've done the rules is just, and then the officials, went to talk to all the officials, I'd come up to Scott, what would you like to see different? What's giving you an issue? And then I'd kind of go through that and see what I could do. And that was basically it.
Can all the tracks around here get together? You've dealt with all of them. You've dealt, right? You've been the one guy, right, here. I guess all 4 of you, but you've worked in that role with all those tracks. Do you think that there's any shot of those 5 or 6 or 7 tracks or 8 tracks to get together on anything?
It's about 13.
Yeah, but we're talking about the primary late model stock car track.
No, I mean, we're back to that same topic. It's whatever they can do to get a car next week. Not all of them. Now, let me say not all of them. Yeah. But it doesn't take but 1 or 2 or 3 to screw the whole thing up.
I don't know how to fix that.
And I think if you look at it, I think the tracks that aren't doing that are the most successful ones. I mean, South Boston would be a great example. They are by the rule book. I mean, you worked there last year, David. I mean, they are straight, by the rule book, and they have the most cars. I mean, that should tell the other ones that, okay, maybe we need to get on this page here. And it may not work out for us, day 1 or week 1 or, month 1, but eventually that's going to work out for us.
I think racers forget they can choose to go to a different racetrack.
Well, I mean, most racers today, there's there are travelers. They're in the car store and they go to other racetracks, but most of them today, they're going to race where they're going to race.
I agree.
So whatever the rules are, if the racetrack says, no, you can't do this, well, okay, we can't do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to, Kenny, you said earlier, you just have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not willing to because they think they're going to lose them, when in reality they're not going to lose them.
Right.
They're not going anywhere. A racer who wants to race at Kingsport or Motor Mile or Langley or Southern National, they ain't going anywhere. That's where they want to race. More than likely, that's where they have their sponsors. Yeah, right.
But they're coming back.
That's right. I mean, I've seen examples of that, all the time. A guy leaving and going and doing something else, and then here he comes.
I ain't never coming back.
Right.
Usually a guy that says that, he is the first one to the gate the next week just to make sure they're still going to let him in. It's the truth.
Yeah.
I always laughed when I was promoting races. I always laughed at a guy when he told me, well, I ain't never coming back. All right, buddy. You know what I mean? That's funny. I'll see you next week.
Then Thursday he calls, hey, man, can I come back and test? Or
Usually Thursday he was there to practice.
Yeah, there
he
you
was
go.
open practice. Hey, man, everything's good from last week, right? Yeah, everything's good. I mean, it's just the way it goes. Back to, your time at NASCAR. What were your biggest challenges working there? That, obviously getting the tracks to be on the same rules. Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
That was your biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Was there anything, aside from that, at that job that you wanted to accomplish but you never got a chance to?
Not. Well, I wanted that. I wanted a class for the officials.
Yeah.
I was, I really wanted everybody to be on the same page, and give them an opportunity to learn their jobs.
Did the tracks not want it, or you just didn't have time to implement it?
I don't know.
What I'm saying is, did NASCAR snuff it out, or did the tracks were like, no, we don't have time to send Kilby to get him educated?
No, it was all online. I was working for all online.
Hey, I was one of those that chimed in on that, did participate in that.
Yeah.
So you did it online, and your participation was nil.
Mm-hmm. Well, almost.
I'm not dogging it. I want to know that people, the only thing I want to do with this is I think this can do a lot of great things. I think a lot of people don't get to talk to you guys all the time, so this can really expose some of the great things you were trying to do that got snuffed, and maybe it rekindles them, maybe it does whatever, but if you tried to implement it, it didn't go. Why did it not go? The racetracks didn't care. Your opinion. The racetrack didn't care. The officials didn't care. They just wanted their $50.
I don't know. I don't know.
I will say, Kenny promoted that, and it was an inner circle that everybody could participate on the officiating side, and he did push that and try to get some involvement. And
I'm talking about
and it was
countrywide.
It was
Sure.
very limited on what people posted and stuff.
And there is a big call for officials to move in. And we ain't gonna live forever, So at a lot of local racetracks, that's one thing I'll say is we need younger people to try to move in there to some kind of positions to move up the ranks at the local short tracks to take over these positions. There's a lot they can learn and use that in different aspects of life too.
Do you see very many young people wanting to be a part of that?
There's some. I know that Nicholas helps with Cars Tour, and he helps Lightning a lot of other races, and he is probably one of the most eager to learn the correct way to do stuff and ask questions. I wish there was probably about 15 or 20 more.
Right.
But it was if Scott had a problem, he could ask the question, and he had the whole country to answer it for him.
Or help him answer it. Yeah, I like it.
But it didn't. There's just no one in that.
There was 3 or 4 of us that correspond back and forth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That surprises me. That I didn't know that before today. That surprises me. It
And,
really does.
And it was online training, how to take a carburetor, how to
do it at home, do whatever.
Videos.
Couldn't get nobody.
So
to do
you
it.
did the videos?
Some of them.
Gotcha.
Some of them's already there, for the upper echelons.
I was trying to think of. Shane Law's got on there some, I believe. Karen Tunnel. So there's a few, but
what's interesting about that is all people that are still involved.
Right.
All people that are still involved.
not, you know what I mean? That they cared enough to invest the time in it, and they're still trudging to try to better themselves. I find that intriguing.
Lightning, I guess, one of my questions specifically for you is, what's the biggest challenge for you when you go to Tech car store and then you go to a NASCAR track? What's the biggest challenge between the two?
Not being on the same page. I mean, Tech's different. The cars tour, they roll through every week, pre-Tech. Bodies, we check stuff, safety. We do safety 3 times a year as far as major safety checks on them. And then we'll pick something each week to look. And then when you go to a NASCAR track, they're crunched for time so much that a lot of times the only check you can do is pretty much after qualifying and after the race. And that's where you get into a lot of trouble. Because stuff that you could have caught beforehand and had it fixed, which that in return pays to get out of the building and walk up and down pit road and look at stuff.
Right. Do you think part of that's a product of racetracks trying to have a shorter, more compact day?
I think so. But then you have to walk out and do visuals. That's the thing. You got to get out there and look. Right. And this incident set certain tracks last year was visuals.
Right.
That was seen.
Do you see a lot of a lot of Tech people, in your travels, any of you guys can answer this, that aren't doing that? I mean, I don't want you to call anybody out, but
I do.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much everybody. Gotcha.
I use race monitor, stopwatch, video, everything every time I go to class it is.
Right. You need to know what they're doing on the track.
Got to know, and I do. I walk around, I watch a back window. If I see the back window sucking in, when they come off the racetrack, they'll see me there. Especially when, they got rammed about it first time they went to Bristol about body braces and stuff. When the year started, by the time we got to Bristol, we were all on the same page on and everybody pretty much was there. I didn't have to say a whole lot about it.
How much stuff do you catch in pre-Tech? You mentioned pre-Tech. Do you catch a lot? I didn't mean that honestly. Do you think that people...
They'll bring you 5 things that you could find wrong, and there's one of them they're going to make sure you find wrong, and hopefully they'll let you'll fix that one thing and let them slide.
You only know that because you're a racer. You played that game before, right? And you all have.
I think all of us has been on that same side.
100%. I always used to laugh at the pre-Tech thing, right? I'm like, yeah, right.
It just
like
gives
we're rolling through here with the right stuff, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come on.
It really gives you a way, though, not to have to get in an issue at the end of the night over something stupid.
Yeah.
Because you can fix that ahead of time.
That's like an ambush. Something just obvious.
Right.
Yeah. And you just, I'm throwing you out. That's just an ambush to me.
Right. So if you can get that little stuff knocked out and you don't have, which cars tour, we're kind of lucky on that. With Tech, we don't have a protest. So it's just Tech or either going to a dyno. And we are going to pull some engine parts off this year, a little more.
I appreciate that. I think that's great. I mean,
because the dyno stuff we did on the money, we just want to make sure these heads are not being took too far. I mean,
so you guys don't allow protests? Has it always been the case?
I didn't know
about
that.
like it is on every touring series. Yeah.
Interesting. Never knew that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's left in our hands to govern it like it should be governed. Man shouldn't have to spend the money.
Right.
And if we got a problem, it's like Dominion or any other racetrack, we fix it.
Yeah, we fix it.
Right.
When that deal happened, the person was forewarned the last cars race of the following season. If he showed up with it at the next race, which was Dominion, and it happened, and I came to that person that Friday. I said, you got a chance now to make it right and go ahead and take it out. He elected not to do it, and after the race, I keyed the mic up on the radio. I said, that car leaves victory lane. If it's touched, the hood's touched, or anything's touched on it, by the time it gets to me in the tech shed, it's disqualified. I said, when it gets here, I don't want nobody in the tech shed but the driver and me. And I took my pink marking pen and I marked the distributor, I marked the carburetor, I marked everything I wanted to mark. And I told them, I said, I want the carburetor, I want the air cleaner, I want the headers, I want the exhaust system, I want the motor, the clutch, I want everything. I want it right. I unfolded me a card table and set it right there, and every piece come off. I put a piece of tape on it. I put my initials on it, and driver put his initials on it. It went in the back of the car store van, and it was history from there. We had a 604 crate that was making 513 horsepower at 6,800 RPM. So.
That's a dandy.
Yeah. So anyhow,
you know, I think that's another issue too. Is the chain. I think officials get themselves in trouble by not taking care of their.
No, you got to do you know. He gone a whole lot more than I did when I was there.
The chain of evidence.
Yes, you got to keep your hands on it.
You got to keep your hands on it. Yeah.
Right.
And you got to stand behind it. Right.
When we left Kingsport, I followed the truck back to the shop, and I spent the night at the motel there and went to the dyno room next morning. So we don't lose
That's
sight
one
of
thing
it.
I'll say about the stuff that I did with the cars. It was handled correctly.
I think the chain is part of the problem. I think it's different. I think when you used to leave a racetrack, if you were a Saturday night racer, you know whether you won or you lost when you left. And I understand that it's not the same time. Lightning just bowed up in a seat. I understand I understand. But here's the thing that I think. I think that, is it really gotten so sneaky that we need to go back and check everything? You guys are pretty sharp dudes. Let's not bullshit anybody. You pretty much have seen most of the games played in the book. How many times can we not just make the decision right there? You know whether there isn't a single one of you that doesn't 99% of the time know whether it's wrong or right when it gets placed in your hand. But she's smiling. I know it is. I've watched it. You forget I'm a student of the game. You know whether it gets put in your hand, and I'm not even saying who brought it to you, because we've already established that this is a small group of people, and you guys do your due diligence of walking around and seeing things. So my question is, beside that one little bleed hole that they accidentally bored larger in the carburetor, but 90% of the time, why can't we get a decision right then? The racer wants to know. He's scared to death because now for 2 days he's freaked out whether my cam's right or wrong. He already knows whether it's right or wrong, but he's still freaked out about how you're going to interpret his cam right or wrong. So is it not – do we need to go that far with it? Do we need to take it to where we –
Well, my case on a lot of it, and I'm also doing the Southeast Limited, so I've got race in Orange County.
You do it all at one time.
Orange County last year, guy pretty well dominated. So put his heads in his intake, and I took back with me. The reason I took him back with me, I wanted to make sure that when I give him his decision on Monday, that I done cover every base.
Yeah, I can applaud that.
But it's certain things that you look at. Yes, you can make a call. If you see gouge marks inside the head, it's done. I mean, you know it's
right.
wrong.
That's the Kerry Bodenheimer gauge, right? He's just take his finger.
Right.
Like, he threw me out of a race at Kingsport. He took his finger in there. He's like, it's got the right numbers on it, but it's wrong. I'm like, what? Just don't feel right. No, okay, let's go with that. End of the story. That's the end, right? Is it no gauge? Nope, ain't no gauge. I think it was made wrong from the factory. That's wrong. I'm like, sweet.
We at Hickory we tried to leave the racetrack with it done, with a final decision. There was some times, let's say a camshaft, for instance.
Sure, something you can't do there.
Right, which you know,
could.
we got where we rolled them in the car, and but even at that, I knew it was wrong.
Right. That's what I mean.
It was wrong, but we went just
you
out
give
of
him the benefit of the doubt.
Just the benefit of the doubt, or we wanted a backup proof in black and white. Here's what the camshaft shows. It is wrong.
But why? Why does the track need black? You control the show.
Just
Listen, you're out. That's the way it works.
No.
Right. No, you're right. I appreciate that the most. I mean, why is it?
That's what I live by. That was my officials. No.
It's either right or wrong. That's it.
Why? Cause. No.
Right.
And you talk about learning stuff from officials and all. You take somebody like, I learned a lot from Chad Hunter. To me, his hands were like a set of dial calipers. I mean, he could run his fingernail across something or turn it just right with his hands and feel it. and then he would take the mic and put on there and double check it, and it was exactly what he said it was. And he's never seen the camshaft before.
Yep.
And you can, and as officials, you pick up on a lot of stuff like that. And even Scott, me and him worked together on a few motors and stuff like that, and I learned a lot from the way he did stuff and picking up on stuff. I mean, I wish, like you say, get some more people involved, and it would make it a lot easier across the board if everybody, learning and going on the same page.
More education for the officials.
That's right. It needs to be done.
But aren't the officials mostly a lot of all part-time? And even you folks have been. When you worked for Hickory, it's not like you were a full-time employee, right? It was a part-time gig.
Right.
You work full-time hours. Let me rephrase. You work full-time hours with part-time pay, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm not dogging anybody.
And that's the tough part, and that's probably one of the reasons that, I backed out of it last year. I think Kevin run 26, 28 races at Hickory, and then when you're off, you spend time at these lower divisions. You think late model stock car tough? Deal with street stocks. That's just one piece of the pie for all of us sitting here. It's the limiteds, it's the street stocks, it's the renegades, it's the mini stocks.
Those are a mess.
And you talking about not a rule book. So even on your day off or whatever. Gary Stewart's junkyard. I spent several Saturdays measuring metric cars.
Yeah.
Just trying to get an education what's right and wrong with some of these lower divisions. But yes, most of us, unless I don't know, Lightning might be rich. I don't know. He might not have to work during the week.
I work for Dan Hackett.
No, I know Lightning. We're all on the same page. We work during the week, so it is extremely tough to stay in front of those guys that now a lot of them work 80 hours a week at the shop to try to beat you. So you're always playing catch up. And in my position, I gained more responsibility at work. It was taking up more of my time. When I'm off work, it's not cut and dry. My job now is I have to, I'm always thinking, folks, and it just absolutely, your mind's set on work and trying to figure something out at work, and here's a street stock guy calling saying, what kind of intake can we run on, next year?
Every day.
And it's that every day, so it breaks your concentration. Plus, a couple grandkids come along and on. I raced when I was younger, and my kids were young. I tell this story. My wife mowed the grass. I think I mowed the grass twice in 4 years. And, because I was gone racing or working at the race shop all the time,
the sacrifice
I got another story.
Yeah.
Oh, we was sitting there on the bed one night, and it was one of the nights I was home for a change, and my wife always done the prayers with my daughters and read them a story, and it's 9 o'clock at night. I remember this, and I was home for a change. I spent a little time with the daughters and the wife, went in there to say their prayers and read their bedtime story. It was 9 o'clock. Next thing I know, she was waking me up, and I was sitting up. So she put me to sleep,
right?
Because I was just wore out.
Yeah.
Just wore out.
Yeah.
And
my wife's watching this right now, and we're racing with my son back here, and still trying to work on the side of the tech part when I can, and work my job and do that and spend time with her. And she sacrifices a whole lot, and which all wives do that are involved in motorsports. Mm-hmm. I don't care what they are. They're the ones that need to, some kind of award at the end of the year for being, especially doing both sides, racing and officiating at the same time. It's a lot to it, especially. When I do the street stock deal, we do a race at Dillon, South Carolina on New Year's every year, and we have 50 to 60 cars every year from every part of the country, and all the rules are different. And then me, Ron, and his dad, we'll mold everybody together, and makes it a pretty good show every year. You'll see it on street stock.
I just want everybody to understand that you guys aren't making $1 million.
No.
And that I think that's something that I have forgot over my course of interaction with many of you. I think, we take it such a serious deal because there's so much money invested in it and so much time and work and whatever. But I think that people forget that you have normal jobs and do normal things and try to do other things on top of normal things. And if there's ways that they can work better with their local tech guy to educate him on things that may be happening, I think that's a win, right? Like, I can't believe anybody that calls you. You and I used to do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You would ask me, what do you got going on these truck arms now? And I'd be like, man, nothing. Here's what I see, right? But yeah, and you'd get underneath there and still pull them all apart. It wasn't like I was winning no trophy. He was still taking everything apart. But we talked about a lot of different things to try to make it better.
It's just like I came down here and 2 or 3, I don't know, I know a couple times at night after everybody left when Greg was here.
Sure.
You know, just to look at and get up to speed, especially when I first started on the tech side, what was the latest and greatest. So there's a lot of time spent outside the racetrack just trying to stay caught up and trying to stay on top of things. And it's tough. And, you know, luckily you have people like yourself and Greg and I'll, even Hedgecock, you know, he
Jay does a great job.
And so it's good to have a good relationship with all those folks because they can help you. Because I know, like, you're trying to get the edge.
Sure.
But there again, you don't want somebody to have the edge over you.
100%.
So
you might have to weed through some of the comments to get to the truth, but you get there, right?
And then the racers themselves are really your best helpers. You know, because they'll inform you. They'll tell you a lot of time. If they're winning with it, you'll never hear a word about it. But if they're getting beat by it, you'll hear about it. So
you know,
talking about it underneath
a good little deal. Maybe you offer them $100 if they rat somebody else out, then it's wrong. Let them take care of themselves.
Listen, that's Kenny. Everybody on the radio. That's Kenny Hunley saying that.
Kenny has $100 to give up. I guess.
Listen, I wouldn't go in the back of somebody's.
I'm talking about the racetrack. You know, instead of paying officials, just say I'll give you $100 if you rat the other guy out.
I wouldn't go in the back of somebody's trailer to eat chicken wings.
You know? Right.
Listen,
because you're afraid, 100%.
Right, because I'm afraid the perception would be. Now, I say, you bring those chicken wings and set them off in the tech shed.
They'll be gone.
They'll be gone. But I'm not going to your trailer.
What would you think if you was racing and you seen that? I've lived through it.
You know,
right. So. And that's the biggest thing I want people to remember going forward is you guys are all racers. I think what happens is somehow in a racer's mind, when you convert over to being an official, now you become the enemy. In me, it's the same thing, right? It's broken. My mind is broken. Now I have to beat you. You are the guy that's keeping me from getting what I want. And I think the intriguing part of that is it's not really the case. It's not really the case of you keeping me from getting it as much as I just need to work harder to try to find better areas that I can improve. And they think that none of you have ever been to the racetrack before. Right, you don't understand their point of view. But those are all things that are not true. You're all racers. Every one of you told your story of, 40 plus years of experience, and maybe that's a way that we could bridge that communication between tech people and is come at it from these people are, at least the 4 guys sitting in here are very educated, know what's going on. They're not, maybe they don't catch everything right. They'll be willing to listen to you if they haven't caught it right. But no, at one point he was you. Yep. He was you. He was that guy that's 22 years old that wanted to make it.
Greg Marlowe says y'all are the dark side.
Right. It's us against them. That's it, right?
Tell him to come over. We got cookies.
That's right. And chicken wings, apparently.
I keep trying to get him. I think he should be the head of NASCAR. That's what I keep telling him. I think he should take it over. Can you imagine that?
He's already throwing rule books in the trash can.
Right. So. That would be the greatest thing that ever happened.
We were talking about learning and keeping up with stuff, and you was talking about, crawl under your car and look at your trailing arms.
Sure.
There's many a time at the racetrack, and I'm sure these guys do the same thing. You tell somebody to jack their car up, take all 4 wheels and tires off of it, and you roll underneath of it. First thing they ask you is, what you looking for?
I'll let you know when I find it.
Yeah. And listen, from my aspect, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what I'm looking. Sure. We're looking for rubber make sure it ain't got rubber bushings in the trailing arms. Looking to make sure that it's welded up. Make sure the U-bolts is tight. Those type stuff. But on the biggest thing is you're just rolling underneath there, trying to get an education, trying to see what's going on, and trying to see where things are headed, so you can know.
I found that intriguing. The gentleman that did the super late models in the Cars Tour, I'm terrible with names, did it last year.
David,
yes. Yep. He told me, we built those super late models for David Gilliland Racing, and they won the Cars Tour Championship with those deals. And he said, everybody complained every week about what we were doing with the rear end of that car. He said, I was underneath that car 16 times. There was nothing illegal going on there. And people couldn't fathom that. They couldn't fathom that it was just geometrically changing. He was over everything on that car, and people still didn't accept the fact that they're solid rods. We can only make them go. You can't make them collapse and not collapse. But people wouldn't believe him. Yeah, I believe that. He said the same thing. I'm not looking for one thing that's wrong. I'm looking at all of the things because I've never seen a car do that on the racetrack before.
And roll under one of your cars 15 times, we pretty much know when we roll under there what we're going to see and probably not going to see it. But you still have to do it because you need to make sure that guy that finished second feels like he got fair treatment when he goes out the gate.
Well, I did it
and
one
if
time
you don't
after
do
qualifying.
anything like that, I think you do a disservice to the guy who finished second. And sure, you don't tear a motor down every week, but from my perspective, I just wanted when they left the racetrack that they felt like we just didn't overlook anything obvious.
That's right.
So.
No, I've done it after qualifying before. Jack went up and slide up underneath it. One of them, he qualified on the pole, and I slid up underneath it. And I'm a sizable guy, so I take up the whole underneath of the car. Well, I bumped the header, and I'm like, that header it should be a little bit warmer than that, being we just come off the racetrack. Well, after the race was over, I pulled them headers off for me. Pulled them off, took my brake cleaner, my rag, and they look like they's coated on the inside. That's probably why they weren't as hot as they should have been. Well, in the NASCAR rule book at the time, you couldn't coat the inside of the headers, so he was wrong. I mean, but if I hadn't jacked up that,
you like me when they jack that car up. If your belly don't get hot,
that's right.
Then something's going on, right? It doesn't have no more aggravating than to tell somebody to go get their jack stands and jack it up, and you tell them, say, "Listen, get the thing up. I got a little gut on me. I got to get under the car." And it's like they come over there with the shortest jack stands they got.
Like, listen, when I worked for Finch, when I worked for James Finch, we had some built that were the smallest jack stands you could ever. Gadget used to get so mad because we only raised the car 6 inches out, and he would be squeaking under. That was the game, man. That was the game.
Still playing it.
Right. It was great.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to say, go get your other jack stand.
A bunch of racers have asked me over the course of the last little bit, and I don't know the answer to this, and you guys are the perfect panel to ask this to. How do you make a determination of how far you're going to tear something down or how far you tech something with knowing that they're going to take on the costs of repairing that back together? Does that make sense? Like you don't and there's nobody here, I don't think, that wants to run anybody out of racing. You're all here free will because you want to be and want to make it better. A lot of people I hear, well, they just pulled the heads, or they're picking on me because of this, or how much goes into what it's going to cost that racer to go. Like, I think Lightning has to tech way different than what Kilby would have had to tech at Hickory, for the simple fact of Kilby's going to get to see that same motor 2 or 3 times before you understand. Where the Cars Tour, you may only see it once. How do you guys determine what that cost is going to be to the racer? Because he can't win $3,000 and we tear $6,000 worth of stuff apart, and now he's really pissed.
And the Hickory guy, chances are he works during the week. So he's going to have more of a tougher time getting his stuff back together for the next week. If you take the crankshaft out of it.
Right.
Where the Cars deal, chances are they either got another motor or they got full-time help. They're going to run it. They're going to have it at their engine builder on Sunday morning.
But Josh Berry has brought up some good things to me that it made me think differently, right? That said he thinks people pick on him sometimes, and I think they do, right? Because he's Josh Berry. And my intriguing part comes with that like, is that I want to prove his theory because I think he's right. I actually thought he was wrong for a long time, and I believe
car number when it comes through that tech shed.
But I'm not saying that.
I watched the race, and I judge a lot of it off of that.
I mean, I tore Josh Berry's stuff
100%
a lot
right.
at Hickory.
Right.
But the bottom line is he was dominating and he was winning.
Right.
And it comes back to the guy that finishes second. I want him to know that he got beat legit. Now.
But you can't run him out of business.
But you can't run him out of business. Yeah. And we didn't tear Josh Berry's stuff all the way to the ground every week.
Sure.
But it got rolled underneath of every week.
Sure.
And it got the heads took off of it. periodically, probably every 3 or 4
How much does
times
that
it
play?
wins.
Each one of you. How much? I kind of know your thoughts on it, Lightning. How much does that play of what people are gonna have to spend? How far you go with knowing what? And I'm not saying it doesn't matter what person it is or whatever. When the checkered flag falls and Lightning says, "I'm gonna do tech today," how far do you think? In your mind, because in a perfect world, you tear every part on that thing apart and try to do it, right? But we know that's not the way it works. So how do you process in your mind what you're going to tech, how far you're going to go, what you're going to do?
Well, it was one racetrack I worked at. I had to write down what I was going to tear down before the race started.
Sure.
I didn't like that.
I can understand.
All right. With Caraway, Southern National, Cars Tour, I can watch you race. And Joe Collins used to always say is, if it's a good race, check you a little something, send them on home. He said, man, laps the field, spend the night with him. And, I mean, that's kind of how you still got to look at it. It's hard for me to look at the money part. I've got to look at, did you dominate?
The competition portion of it.
Right.
And I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that.
Now, do I think you need to pull the top 5 down every race?
No.
Top 3, and if it was a domination, you're going to pull a little more on the first place card than you do second and third.
Yeah, Josh Berry's smart. He ain't going to dominate. He's going to roll out there about 4 car lengths because he knows that's what you're going to do, and he's just going to ride.
I know.
Or he's going to start about 3rd or 4th and just cruise on up in there, and about 20 to the end, he's going to crush them.
And he puts on the show.
Yeah, right. And I just can't. I like that. That was the one thing that always baffled me, because NASCAR used to have the random. How do you select it?
Right. Josh Berry's smart enough to, he's got to put on a show. That's one thing he talked about when he was on.
Yeah, he knows.
And and a guy who helps put on the show, you're not going to be that hard on him.
No,
I mean,
he's going to get the respect.
He deserves it.
And we've all been around it. I think a lot of it's gut feel. I mean, That's
why Bushee's head hit the table when I said 99% of the time when the part gets put in your hand, you know whether it's right or wrong, because it is gut feel.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of pretty well know on some instances where you need to go with things.
Especially now, it's like the deal with the valve job when they come out and specify that on the Harrington motor. The more we take apart, and more we put our fingers on and measure and stuff like that.
Learn every time.
You learn every time. Even at the Thanksgiving race, me and Lightning did heads and camshaft on two Harrington motors built by the same guy. So I mean.
Speaking of that, clarification. Do you think that was something that was running rampant with a lot of?
It was something that happened somewhere enough for it to be an issue.
Well, I mean, I know it happened at Hickory.
Well, yeah, we knew it happened.
Hickory exposed it, didn't they? They were the one that originally found
it. Tony Wilson at Hickory's the one that found that. So,
do any of you guys think that was happening? A lot other places. I mean, you probably got to put your hands on more of them than anybody.
Yeah, he's probably got his hands on most of them.
I talked with an engine builder, I don't know, a couple months ago, and he told me he had to buy 9 sets of heads. So,
because of this.
Was this the same engine builder that got thrown out at Hickory?
No.
The one at Hickory. That was Tom's stuff, right? Gotcha. Bushee,
yes.
One question for you specifically, because you are on the other side of it still with Jonathan. With him racing, you're a low budget guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, you're not making $1 million unless Diaz pay doesn't went up, and I doubt it.
He's a Jew too, Diaz. He don't pay you half of what you're worth.
A quarter.
I want to call him out.
But other than money, what would help you to help him move up?
That probably being the biggest thing.
Sure.
And but it's something that you're probably going to see a little bit more of. The people that know me probably have learned that they can trust me now on the tech side. That I'm going to call it straight down the middle on them. But I've got a lot of people that help us, that are other racers, companies. Just like with Roger and engine builders and stuff like that. But that's being the biggest thing, is having the access to the people that I know through racing, through doing it so long. That's has got us to as far as we have. We probably would be a little further along if I had more sponsorship more of my own money. But the backing I have from fellow racers and people, the businesses, the racing businesses and stuff like that, that's probably got us, to where we're probably going to try to do a lot more limited races and stuff this year. Mm-hmm. Without that, we probably wouldn't have been able to do it. Just like we run our engine the last race and we found there was a problem with it and we need to get it fixed. And John West stepped up and said that we could use one of his engines until we got ours fixed before we blew it all, to pieces. Does that change how I check anything that they've ever seen? No, because
and they don't expect that either.
No, and it's like I say, when the car rolls through that tech door, it's a car number to me.
Right.
It don't have nothing to do with who does what.
Is there anything within the direction in which we need to go with rules and cost savings that would help you get him to the next level?
Basically, just the biggest thing that hurts me is having the money to get to stay ahead on the technology side, to get to where just like now I've got to buy a spring smasher, a shock, because I run a coilover car, so I got to have it. That's I'm talking with somebody on making one. The average person that can maybe afford $1,000 to $1,500 unit, everything I price is $2,000 to $5,000. And I just the average short track budget racer in like a Charger class or a limited late model class, the low end guys they can't afford it. So if something along the lines that with the equipment that would help to get the prices down where some of these budget guys like us can afford it. As far as the rules, we are not to that level yet, really. We get a lot of stuff that the late model guys take off. The deal with the spindles, if it ever come down, I can afford the $350 spindle. If it ever come down to where everybody was running a $1,000 spindle, we wouldn't be able to do it. I would have to keep racing what I had and just improve on it the best I could.
One question for you specifically, Scott. If you were still the tech guy at Hickory, and given the discussion tonight and him talking about, the spindle that was outlawed, was actually a cheaper one than the one that is allowed, how would you enforce that rule at Hickory?
Shoot, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
But the reality, Kenny tried to get everybody on the same page.
Right.
The reality is it
everybody don't want to.
You would go by the. I would go by the NASCAR rule.
Right.
And if somebody showed up with some, the reality is you ain't going to send them home. I'd put a weight penalty or something on them for something that's outside the NASCAR rule.
I respect Kenny Hunley more than I have ever before, and I don't mean this bad. I mean it. No, I mean it great from the standpoint of I don't think people realized or at least I didn't realize how much you tried to educate people to make it better. Realized that because a lot of those things that you were doing was in those small inner circles that I don't think the mass mob out here that's standing with fire and pitchforks, I don't think they got to see that as happening. And I respect that fully. I'm sad that you couldn't get the participation that you wanted or that should have happened, but that exponentially blows my mind of how you would try to educate the people better and people would just choose not to take part in it. At a racetrack, as an organization, wouldn't make that a mandatory thing. That it's under the NASCAR banner that they wouldn't follow. And that I respect that greatly. It's trying to make it better.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know anything about the whole program of trying to get the education and I think here in this region specifically, I think we definitely need something like that where everybody's on the same page and I'm not saying online wouldn't work, but I think in person would work a whole lot better if you could get them all there.
But, you have to start somewhere.
No, right.
And that was quick and easy.
I like the online deal, too, plus if they work, because almost everybody works a normal job, right? At 7 or 8 o'clock at night, you cook dinner, everybody's hanging around before they go to bed, or your kids go to bed and you're an official, like you were talking about with your grandkids. Hey, I need to watch these 2 videos for an hour or 30 minutes instead of turning on Netflix. I fire up my computer and I turn on that. That's a win. That's just being better at your job, being better at things that I never knew that existed. And I have to apologize for some of the bad things I've said about you. I don't take them back, but I will apologize for some of the bad things. I'm just kidding.
It doesn't bother me at all.
I'm just teasing.
Wow. Greg Marlowe said he missed why the other spindle is legal.
I love Greg. You know why?
Greg is all about
But wait,
tonight.
Greg's the fingernail guy. That's what everybody needs to realize. Greg is the guy that is enough of a tradesman and enough of a craftsman and good enough at his craft that he can run his fingernail over it and tell you, boy, that ain't right. Okay, I'm sorry. Yep, you won. I mean, he's just that good.
And Greg's one of them guys that you can picture him and you can still hear his voice. You can hear him talking. There's some people that,
right.
You can picture something and you could hear him saying it when he's saying
100%.
it. That's him.
Right.
That's Greg.
Right. And just to clarify why that's legal for Greg, give us your explanation again, Lightning, about it being 3-piece instead of 1-piece.
That's the whole thing. The way the rules wrote, if it's a 1-piece, it's wrong.
So as long as it's billet.
No, it's got to be drop forged.
Okay, so who's going to make sure that they're drop forged? Is what Greg wants to know.
Don't have no idea. That's why car store, there's no need to touch something. Just don't went too far.
What is the 3 pieces?
The stern arm, the spindle shaft, and then the center. That's 3 pieces.
Okay, so the steering arm's welded on.
But it can be welded on, bolted on.
See,
Well, I mean, a brake bracket would consider be another piece, wouldn't it?
Right, and that's where everybody's confused as to how far down the rabbit hole this deal's going to go, and that's what Greg's alluding to.
Lord, these
That's
spindles,
why we
these
asked-
spindles has got to go.
We asked to see
These
pictures of
spindles
what's
is the
legal.
death of the world.
Of
They
what?
they sent us pictures of stuff that was illegal.
But you want to see what's approved.
Right.
You would like to see you would like to see what we're saying is okay instead of what we're saying is not okay.
Right. And if it's only a few cars that's got this other spindle, there's still a rule at the front of that book that says readily available to everyone.
Yeah.
So that's something else needs to be looked at.
Whoa,
too.
I didn't. Where is this rule? I've studied that thing pretty substantially.
Greg threw it in the trash.
Yeah, Greg throws the rule books in the trash, so I don't get to see them. But
if it's not readily available for everyone, then it's not supposed to be in there.
Does that mean over the counter?
No.
It has to be over the counter?
If I wanted something he's got, if I could come and buy it from him for my car, that's fine. But if you can only, certain ones can get this piece, then it's not readily available.
Marlowe chiming in again, and I guess this is a really good
we're
question.
having him on the show.
Why ain't he here?
I don't know,
He
Greg.
was here earlier today.
I don't know why he didn't just stay and
He was in
stay
the
on.
back hanging out with Laser Cup Parts. He's helping me out.
But I'll give this question to you, Scott, and you, Bushee. He said if he cuts his steering arm off and welded, he's ready to go.
Sure. Sure, he can do that because I'm gonna be out.
But,
I'm gonna be at the go-kart track with the grandkids, so I'm not going to worry about it.
But what I'm asking is if you're the tech guy, let's say you go back to Hickory and you're the tech guy, okay? And he does that.
Let's ask Lightning. He's the tech guy
but
originally.
it's his is legal. It doesn't matter.
So at Hickory, okay.
If you're there, or you, Bushee, either one.
Yeah, let's take
Bushee
Bushee because we can pick on him because he's here.
If he comes to Southern National and you're enforcing the rule and he cuts the steering arm off and he welds it back on, is he good?
Let it eat.
By the rule, he's good.
Let it eat.
Right. I don't mean that. Right. Like that's why I can't believe everybody's making a big deal out of this.
So
by the
basically,
rules, we can do this.
So basically, Josh Berry established that all you got to do is cut it and weld it, and you're good.
No, I think
It can't be billet.
Yeah, it can't be. It can't be. It has to be drop forged. So I'm interested as to how we're going to figure that out because I'm going to put him in a sandblaster or do something crazy with them so that I get the texture that looks like we forged these things or machine them another way, and nobody will ever be able to tell the difference.
So instead of cutting it off, why don't just run a beater weld around it?
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Josh Berry said cut it off. I said no. There's no reason for that. We just burn a weld around there.
Makes it look like it's been
And
cut.
then Kevin Piercy called me Monday morning, pissed, because he told me, well, I guess we'll have to cut them spindle arms off. I said that's gonna make people happy, right? Like as soon as you tell Zach Brunninger that you're running his spindle through the bandsaw, he's already freaked out of his mind.
It don't take much to get him that way.
Kevin's going to be calling me tomorrow.
Oh, for sure. Right?
Oh, I guarantee it. I mean, probably when you leave.
Yeah, he's probably. My phone will ring here in a minute. So
I mean, he's trying to do his best too. I don't disagree with that, but I do think that And Greg brings up an interesting point, right? Like, there's a difference between we used to do so many things in the old days to cover up the work we did. Because if it looked a certain way or it felt a certain way or it measured a certain way or it, like, Chad Knaus would not have a job if he didn't figure out ways that he used to cheat. That X measurement that them dudes come up with was the greatest thing ever for that dude because he just figured out ways to beat it, right? I mean, give me more rules because then I figure out ways to beat them. And
it puts others in the box, and he's
right because he figures out ways to expand
one out of
them.
One out of the way, and puts them in a box so he can beat the rest of them. So
I just want Lightning to establish that he really doesn't believe, because I want this for all my limited guys out there. No, I have a lot of them. I have a lot of limited guys that look up to the Cars Tour, and they're starting. I'm worried about them because they're calling me in large numbers, wanting to spend $2,000 or $3,000 that they don't have because they think it's going to be such a huge performance advantage, and I want people that understand and have done the testing, and it's not Roger trying to not sell me something or sell me something, to realize that you don't have to have a $2,000 set of spindles to go to Hickory and run limited and win.
No.
I'm not saying that. I just don't see this huge. I spent more time on the 7-post at TRD than any human being possibly should, and I'm telling you, I just don't believe that the crazy deflection is there.
It's not.
And I that's why I didn't do any of these, and I'm not justifying myself. I'm just saying that Gibbs has spent, Greg Marlowe can chime in on this right here, right? Because I know he knows this one. Joe Gibbs has spent almost just shy of $1 million on one spindle. It's completely set up with all their load cells in it. They use it for testing. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way at Hickory that we're getting so much deflection on the spindle pin that we need to put this huge machined piece in there. It's just not. I think it's overkill for what we're doing. We're not at Atlanta. We're at Bristol. I'll give it to you. At Bristol, I would give it to you. I think at Bristol, there's probably an advantage there. I think at Martinsville, there's an advantage there, only for the brake issue. But I just don't understand why all of a sudden we got to make everything crazy, super, triple throwdown aircraft. And the bad part is I don't worry about the top. I don't worry about the guys that run the car store because they can afford the 2,000. I worry about the little guy that can barely afford the 250 to race at Hickory on used tires or race with Bushee on used tires or do, you know what I mean? Do whatever. And now he believes that he can't compete unless he has those spindles. And that's what I want people to understand.
I don't think that we can make them not believe that, but the easiest way to I hadn't seen where it affected the outcome of races. Riggs won Kingsport. He didn't have them.
Right.
Deke won Orange County. He didn't have them.
Greg Marlowe chimed in on the spindles, and God, I hope this is the last thing we talk about the spindles.
Me too.
He said that he ran both spindles back-to-back with no gain.
And
no gain.
He is correct.
That's the end of the spindle conversation.
I hope so.
Here is final question. We've got about 8 minutes to go here. Final question is, let's say you guys are the guy and there's no restriction. I'm gonna.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna.
Love this.
I think I'm gonna go.
I can't wait for Bushee's.
I think I'm gonna go to
Bushee
Bushee
he's
first.
a racer, so you know.
So we want to know, if you're the guy, there's no restrictions. What are you doing to fix the problems in late model stock rules?
Cars Tour rules. Yep. Cars Tour rules. He said it right here.
There you go.
But
I can't do NASCAR.
Because you're saying that Cars Tour rules are better because they're unified.
That's right.
Because they're unified.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily about the rule. It's about the unification and everybody knowing what to follow. I appreciate that.
No. No, if I had to do it, that's where I'd go with it. I did it. I was part of it. I know.
Knowing what you did.
I know how the machine works. It's just shock-wise, whatever. Do I think it needs to grow and get out of hand where you can't, where it's only a select group of people that can run it? No. I think you got to keep it where everybody that comes to a local racetrack thinks they can come race with them.
Right.
So.
All right, Kenny, you.
If I was king of the world and could drop the hammer,
Yep.
I would. Rules are stopped right here. This is it. We're going to run them for 5 years. No changes. We're going to change We're going to change the date, and that's it. We're not going to change anything. And then I would watch, police, dyno engines, whatever, to make sure that we're staying in line. Rules cost money.
Absolutely.
A rule change costs money, period. If it's to save money, it still costs money.
And let's clarify, you're not saying that there won't be adjustments over the 5-year period of time as things come up and as innovation happens. You're just saying that this is our standard, and we may modify them 2 degrees off one way, or we see something that may happen here, or other effects outside may affect it that we have to change it. But what you would say is, I would like this current rules package to be thought of as going on exponentially in time until we were forced to change them.
Right. I want, the car you build needs to be good for 5 or 10 years. The engines need to be good for 5 or 10 years. It's got to stop. If it doesn't stop, everybody's going to be priced plumb out of the business.
100%.
Maybe an 8-inch tire too.
Yes,
I like that.
I say that.
I'm all about that.
When Langley and Roger do their crazy, we're going to buy a racetrack and start running races, we're running on 8-inch tire.
Then we won't have to worry about the engines.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that was the greatest thing. I love that.
Right.
8-inch tires where it's at.
Southside has
all
the best
the motor
rules.
you can put under it, and on the 8-inch.
Yeah, because then we got to see them drive.
That's right. All right, Lightning, you're up. What are you doing?
He is king of the world. What are you asking him for?
Well, I mean, if they would follow
he's king of what you're telling him to
be
do.
The king of the world.
Right.
Cars Tour has got the best package at this point in time.
100%.
The Cars Tour needs to put a freeze on the engine.
Aren't you guys kind of already in the process of that? That's what I thought.
Of the point of, yes, we may have to make adjustments.
Sure,
but
little
no
adjustments.
more major part changes.
No more upgrades.
Right, upgrades. Upgrades killed us.
Yeah.
We put a lot of people out of racing with upgrades.
Agree.
That's right.
That's the biggest thing I think will fix some of it right now.
Well, let me ask the question, just for my own curiosity.
Kenny Hunley taking over the show, ladies and gentlemen. I like it. I like it. Do it.
Did that spec motor and this deal, all this engine deal, did that bring any cars to the racetrack?
Neither
Honest
one
opinion.
bought no cars.
Huh?
Neither one. The spec motor or the Harrington. It's just people went
and spent money?
Yeah.
That's it. Right. That's right. Nobody came to it because they're like, this is a great option. I'll be able to run this for 5 years. It was the people all in the machine that said, oh, damn, that's what we got to have.
If anything else, a lot of teams left because of the options.
100%.
No doubt
but
about that.
when we dynoed this in the Cars Tour, dynoed the first Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
And did they or did they not get the wool pulled over the eyes?
Yeah, they
we did.
Shady to shady.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I ain't lying.
Well, Lightning's done his homework. I like him.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the first one rolled out that everybody said was the perfect thing, and it wouldn't even get out its own weight.
Wasn't close, was it?
No.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
It come out of a car that was somebody's that's been chiming in on here a lot tonight. So.
It was
Greg
50
Marlowe.
horsepower off. It was 40 to 50 horsepower off. So.
Wow. All right, Scott, you get the last answer. You've had more time to think about it, so we expect you to have the best answer.
Well, I don't know about that, but I wish there was one answer.
Right.
But I'd agree that they need to lock in a set of rules for at least 5 years, and especially on the engine side. Yeah. You got to get to this. Here's the cup. I mean, it was great back in the day when there was just one engine.
Right.
You had a 350 carburetor on them years ago. Now I think the move to a 500 made better racing. Because it got unfortunate where the 350 carburetor is almost single file racing at all the racetracks, I felt like. But we got to lock in those 2 to 3 engines, which I think NASCAR's headed that way. But there again, if one of the engine builders are going to continue to work on them. Yeah. So when one gets an advantage, you got to put a plate on them or something and reel them back in.
Yeah, but the chassis builders are too, right? So I don't because I catch hell from all my motor builder buddies that say that I only chassis too. I think that too. I don't think
they
we
said
can.
on here that you're the main problem.
I am.
Yeah. So.
I am the problem, and I'll continue to be the problem because that's how you know you're relevant. If you're not the guy causing any problem, you're not relevant.
I think
nobody cares.
One thing in late model stock car racing in general, and I spend too much time on this because this would be a whole other subject. But years ago, before Jeff Gordon come along, the short track racer, it was less expensive, and the short track racer felt like he had a chance to get the cup. You worked hard. You raced hard. You raced hard. You won races. You may be 35 years old before you got there, but if you were the man, you had a chance.
I think it was the same price. Because Cup didn't cost $14.60, and I haven't been.
I
haven't seen a Cup budget in 10 years, right? But when I worked at Cal Wells, our Cup budget was $16 million, $16 million, right? So my question is, late model stock, right, for Jeff Gordon cost $40,000. So in perpetuity, I think it continues to stay along the same scale as it's going. Would you agree, Bushee? We talked about it a little bit.
Use Scott for an example. When I went to Hickory and watched a race, I saw the number 30 Art Herman Windows Clinspor number 30 car winning races. Them same sponsors I seen on a lot of cars, and in Busch Grand National and some Cup. And
but now
that was somebody we could pull for.
Somebody goes and tries to work hard and stuff, and unfortunately somebody with money can bypass all of that effort.
Cost of entry.
I think all of that's changing a little bit, though. You look at Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick. I mean,
somebody's spending money to get them out.
I say no. I say it's not changing.
No.
I think NASCAR knows that they are in trouble.
Well,
they know that it costs so much money that they're screwed. So now we're losing all of our fan base. What do we got to do? We got to say that somebody that's a broke dude made it. Oh, Daniel Hemrick, here you are. Oh, yeah, I'm RCR, who took $25 million from Paul Menard that couldn't hit his ass with both hands, right? And I love Paul. Paul and I are friends. But he couldn't hit his ass. Right now, he's never going to talk to me again.
Yeah.
But it couldn't happen. So now you have the same people that were exposed, that they created. RCR was one of the, and they were a customer of mine. They'll never be again. But we built all them cars for them Dillon boys. We did all that work, right? They bring us spindles. They bring us drawings. Greg was intricate in that deal. And the interesting part is they were as big of the problem because they went out and did it and said, hey, pay us $20 million and we'll make this kid a Cup superstar.
Right.
Nope, didn't happen. I love him. He ran a lot of races, did a lot of things, but he still wasn't going to be a Cup superstar. So the problem is now, oh, crap, now we got nobody following this thing because the racing sucks. Now we need to come out and say that we took all these broke people and we made them heroes. Well, you didn't. You didn't.
Listen,
and I'm not taking anything away from Daniel. That dude's worked his ass off. I'm not dogging him. He's been at every race in every shop working underneath to get his shot. But that's not really the way it works. At least not for long. Because in 2 years, when they don't have any money and they haven't found anybody, do you think that Richard Childress, I just want, for the people at home that are listening, what would you do? Would you take the $25 million and take $3 million and get in your jet and helicopter to the airport to get in your plane to fly to Sonoma to watch the race? Or would you take the poor kid who had no money that you weren't going to be able to scam 10% off the top of and stick it right in your pocket? Would you take him and be like, you know what, tear everything you want up. It's no problem. I got this. That's not going to happen.
That's NASCAR's business model that's in trouble.
But it's not NASCAR's business model. It's the teams that have tried to figure out ways to make money inside of it because they weren't strong enough to make money through the racing portion of it. So now we got to monetize making people pay to drive, which has become the new normal.
Right.
Sorry, that deal just makes me mad.
The guy, what's his name, that watermelon farmer there, and got in that car and drove it just, and won races with it.
And I'm not saying that people that have money aren't good racers. That's not what I'm meaning. I just don't think – I think how fast you want to go. That's it.
William Byron was racing at the same time Josh was at Hickory.
Yep.
Running both
Look at
Motorsport.
Who won?
Right. Who won at the end of the day?
Right.
The one with,
No, he didn't win. He didn't win. He spent $15 million.
Well, I was getting ready
to
say, what's the difference between Josh Berry and William Byron? And no disrespect to William Byron. He was one of the nicest, most respectable people to come through the tech shed. Mm-hmm. Listen, and I appreciate it. Great kid. But the difference between Josh Berry and William Byron's $8 million to $15 million.
Correct. 100%.
That's the difference.
100%.
All right, well, we got to wrap this up. Any parting, shots you guys?
I'm glad y'all came. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. been a great show.
We're gonna get Lightning on more times. He might become a staple of the show.
Co-host.
No, for sure. I want you guys to know that
he's getting fired tomorrow. So.
No, he's not getting fired tomorrow. I appreciate every one of you coming here and at least telling. I don't think people realize all the and I'll get yelled at again, but all the shit you guys eat for nothing because you love the sport. If I can bring nothing else to this deal, and Langley and I have talked about it a bunch of times, if I can get people to think differently before they come and try to scream at Lightning or they want to go at Bushee or they want to do whatever, I think that's a win. I just want people to think about, hey, this guy's not making $250,000 sitting on this other side of the deal, and he's worked 120 hours this week, and 40 of them have been on the Cars Tour so that you can continue to come race. I want you to look at that with a little bit of appreciation.
Yeah. Right. Any parting thoughts?
It's all got to work into the same direction all together at some point. We're all in this thing together, even when Roger here with the race shop and me and Lightning on the tech side and Kenny and Scott, and then all the races. We just got to pull together and make it work.
Anything?
I just appreciate somebody wanted to hear my opinion.
I'm glad I finally got to hear Kenny talk.
We found out a lot of interesting things.
I appreciate some of the things.
Exactly.
Listen, between that bump stop deal, I got all new respect for you. Between the bump stop deal and the educational deal, I got all new respect for you. I think you should have let the bump stops on the rear. Just wanted to say that. But other than that, I think it's fine.
It's never enough.
It's never enough.
There's a lot of problems and stuff that they overcome, but still, there's nothing better than track racing.
I want people to reach out to you guys, too. I mean this. Reach out to them. Find them on social. Find them on whatever. Reach out to them. Ask them questions. They've seen this machine go around a couple different times, and they could probably save you a couple grand by calling them and asking them, hey, what we should do, what's your opinion on this? You know what I mean? Call your local racetrack. Ask them what you want to do. If you don't get the answer you want, call one of these dudes. Ask them where you should be, what you should do.
Right. Now that I know there's a scrap pile here, you'll find me here a lot of the time.
Yeah, we got a big scrap pile in the back. You can do it.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight's Race 22 Radio. I appreciate you guys coming on and joining us, and I appreciate everybody listening. And we'll be back here next Monday night with another thrilling show, I hope.
You must stay. If you should go away, you spoil this party I am throwing. I'll stay a week or two. I'll stay the summer through. But I am telling you, I must be